Are we ready to diverge onto the planet known as time?
And space.
Oh, I should probably hit record 1 minute. Okay. Yeah. We're recording.
Let me just finish this pizza that's in my mouth. I do apologise.
Crunch.
Copyright.
Swallow it down.
Copyright.
I'm sorry.
That's me swallowing all the plot contrivances in this area. Hello everyone and welcome to Nerd Bible Podcast episode 200 and I don't fucking know anymore.
Something. Anniversary Jodie extravaganza.
Part 1 of 3 because this is
The Whittaker
definitely
era eleganza extravaganza. We're actually on Drag Race, so we've got to just run the catwalk as like characters from her era, but drag.
1 minute it took
joined-
before you brought Drag Race into this idea.
In all fairness, I would be very, very pleasantly surprised if someone could do a Tim Shaw drag costume.
If you'd like to
Diamonds in
send
the
Andy
face.
your
Look
Tim
at-
Shaw drag
rather
race,
than teeth, it's just like rhinestones. Just make it gay.
I mean, that is a challenge for you, the audience. If you can send in your cosplay RuPaul Tim Shaw drag race entries, and we will judge the competition.
If you can make a sexy drag kablam man, let us see.
If you can make sexy, oh, he's full of teeth.
If you can make a guy full of teeth sexy.
If you can do
what-
a sexy Pting, then
Oh.
I'm gonna go there.
Carvanista getting ragged by Dan Lewis.
If you think you can make the Solitract frog a star on the runway,
I'm good at this. I'm good at this.
If you can make Ryan Sinclair ride more than just a bike.
Ryan Sinclair.
just instead of like the usual whatever it is, you can go whatever she says. I forget. We can just go like eat my salad, Halloween. You're
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, dress up as him and throw stuff at your sexy Tim Shaw drag man. With or without a helmet. We are joined, as always, by our ever-loving guardians of some kind of edge, mainly of destruction. It's Mike and Andy.
I am the guardian of edging. It's often been said.
the guardian of edging. Is that what you just said?
This is going to be that kind of day. If you've got kids, why the fuck are they listening to this, ladies and gentlemen? This is our Jodie Whittaker.
Extravaganza.
Extravaganza influenza, whatever Connor said.
Review. Yeah. Breakdown.
It will be in 3 parts. We will have Series 11 plus
Boo.
Resolution, Series
Boo.
12 plus Revolution,
Yeah.
Flux and the specials.
Boo.
But, that's the magic of production because we're just going to do it all at once because fuck talking about this again.
Yes.
How do we all feel in life and maybe about this era?
I'll let you go, Andy, first.
I didn't hear the question. The audio cut out for me a little bit.
How do you feel about this era?
Okay. I liked it for the most part, but it's definitely the weakest era of New Who so far.
Ooh.
Controversial.
I mean, is it?
No, I don't know. Sorry. I thought I was going to be the bad guy in this stream.
No, Will's not here yet.
That's true. Mike, your general thoughts? You are a guardian of this.
I'm probably one of the more supportive of the era, but I would still I don't think it's a controversial opinion that it's the worst era of New Who. I think that's even as somebody who likes it, I think it's easily the worst of the sort of either RTD, Moffat, or Chibnall era because it just is, unfortunately.
That's a fact.
Has your opinion changed since the era started, or have you sort of always been this is how you feel about it?
I've been all over the place. I really didn't like Series 11. And when that ended, I remember thinking, this is terrible. This era is going to be awful. Then I really liked Series 12. Flux had 2 good episodes out of 6, maybe 2.5. And then the specials, I really liked 2 out of 3 of those as well. So overall, yeah, my opinion of the era is it's more favorable because of little bits and pieces like the acting and the actors and the moments as opposed to the overall episodes. but there is things that I kind of assumed as we kept going were going to get explained that ultimately weren't.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I often said like, "Oh, hang on, it will get explained. It's fine. We need to be patient." And then
Never
I
mind.
think my opinion might have dropped a little bit down to like,
we'll get into that because as much as I actually think the era went out on quite a high, I'm still pissed about some stuff.
yeah,
I
I
actually,
understand.
I actually have a very similar opinion to you and then, like very similar journey because I did not like Series 11 after it finished. I really liked Series 12 for the most part, and then I actually was really quite fond of Flux at first, and then the sort of more it sat, the more I realised, oh yeah, we really did only get like 2 good episodes. And then again, I liked 2 out of 3 of the specials, so yeah, I think we have very similar opinions actually.
Okay.
So I imagine we have the same opinions on the specials, unless for some reason you thought Legend of the Sea Devils was this phenomenal bit of television.
Spoiler alert, that's
think
in my
I'm-
top. That's in my
I'm
top
probably
5.
the person
That's
that
in my
would
top
like
5.
it the most out of you guys, but yeah, it's not great.
What do you mean it's in my top 5?
That's an understatement.
I think the fact that I have it is, I think like I've got it exactly in the middle, like 2.5 out of 5, 5 out of 10, and I'm probably still the person that's most generous towards it.
Put it this way, it's at the bottom of one of my lists and very near the top of my list for worst episodes of the era. So
Oh dear.
It wasn't quite legendary, was it? That's all I'll say. It wasn't
No.
quite legendary.
in fact, yeah, I don't mind saying this now because it's not a massive spoiler. I have it written as the second worst episode of the era.
It's crept into my worst at number 10. I'll give you that much.
Oh dear. Connor, your thoughts on the Whittaker era and don't hate it.
Yeah, spoiler alert. I don't hate it. Series 11, I feel like a different person this past week. I feel like I've watched a different season and most of it gelled. There was only maybe 2-3 episodes which people could debate and moan about, which we'll get into in a bit. Series 12, I had it on such a high pinnacle when that was out before COVID. But then rewatching this time around, this was kind of the meh season for me. But then when we get into the finale, how that affected me at the time didn't affect how the majority of the public felt. But I mean, I feel a bit impartial when we get to that. But then as we hit Flux, oh boy, like, fuck me. Like, the John Bishop era of the show, like, what happens? I really liked Flux, like Andy said, and then I just feel like it was a big waste of time.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just... Yeah.
Dan as a whole was such a it's not a non-character, but like, what did he do?
I liked him. I think it should have been Dan and Yaz the whole way through.
I liked him, and I would have preferred if it was Dan and Yaz the whole way through, because I preferred Dan to Graham and Ryan, but like,
Agreed, yeah.
the fuck did Dan do?
He
I
had
feel-
an
I feel-
unrequited love.
I feel like if he'd have had more time, then just ugh.
So as you can tell, I was similar opinions to Connor, and you guys as well, because I was like, 11 was meh, 12 was great because stuff happened.
Yeah.
Flux was like a promise of good stuff, and I was like, it was like an abusive relationship. I was like, it'll change next week, it'll be different, it'll get good, and it kind of never did. And
Yeah.
I think we can all probably unanimously agree that we like the same 2 out of the 3 specials.
Probably, yeah.
Definitely. That's what's disappointing is that, like, as you said, week by week, you were like, it'll get good. If there's only 6, it'll get good. And then Village of the Angels happened, and you were like, excellent. And then the 2 episodes following it happened, and you were like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, Village of the Angels was on. I think Village of the Angels was the closest I've gotten to enjoying this era as much as I enjoyed the Moffat era, which
I have a
you
few
all
of those.
know is my favorite.
Yes.
But like, yeah, we will get into it all.
Yes.
But yeah, I completely agree. It was like Flux started. I actually thought Halloween Apocalypse was fine. Like, it wasn't
it was all right.
amazing, but
Yeah.
it was fine.
Yes.
And it got me excited for what was to come. Then War of the Centaurs happened, and it was like, oh, this is really good. Then Once Upon a Time happened, and I was like, oh, what was that? And then Village happened, and I was like, oh my god, this was incredible! And then Survivors and Vanquishers happened, and I was like, oh my god, they really dropped the ball, didn't they?
I will, perhaps controversially, I do think Survivors of the Flux, it is my worst episode of the entire era.
Oh,
it's
that's
it's on my list as well. I don't think it's quite there, but it is on my list.
I don't know. So basically, we'll run through the rules. We're going to go from Woman Who Fell to Earth all the way to Power of the Doctor. For you guys, it will stop in between. For us, we're just going to keep going until our brains fall out. And then after each respective series, including the special that preceded it in terms of Resolution and Revolution, we will give our ranking of those. And I know a lot of, like, a few of us have got a ranking of all the episodes, but, like,
I've ranked every... I'll tell you what I've done. I've ranked every episode out of 10. And then at the end of the series with the special that you've given me, I've given an average for the season that I worked out mathematically, a top 3 from the season and a single worst from the season. And then at the end, I've given a sort of top and bottom 10 for the overall era.
I love that you've been very professional about this as always, Mike. I've just gone like it, don't like it.
I mean, I can give you that as well, but there's levels of dislike.
Yeah, but we'll sort of do that.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Andy, carry on. I jumped.
I was going to say, I was going to do scores like Mike did, and then I didn't wake up until 2:00 this afternoon because I'm still running on Canadian time because of the live stream me and Phil were watching all last week while we were off. So I'm like, my sleep pattern's all over the fucking place. So I'm now very hurriedly putting scores together because I remember what I wanted to score them.
I wrote this at 1 a.m, so I was probably the freshest I've been. That's when I wake up.
Yes. I was just like, as I was watching them, I ranked them all as like all the episodes. I have like sort of a rough. From that, I can like gather what was the ranking for each season and so on, and made some notes to try and seem professional. But we're going to go through, so we'll kind of do like the episodes of the series, like Mike said. We'll go through that and sort of like what works, what doesn't, and then to kind of cap it off in the most positive way we can, we're going to, like, from all of our opinions, kind of gather we'll do the worst first, and then we'll finish with, like, the best of this era, and, what we hope that RTD doesn't do.
What points he should touch and what points he should just lock in the colours.
Already done wrong.
Exactly. Bloody regenerating clothes. Anyway, let us begin.
What the fuck was that?
Let us begin before we start a war against Russell with. I feel like we should start at the very beginning, which would be the announcement.
Right. This is the prequel to the Woman
So,
of Earth.
where do we remember where we were when I think it was Roger Federer was beating the shit out of Djokovic, and then we saw Jodie Whittaker with a TARDIS PNG from the first Google search?
I completely missed it because I had no idea it was really happening, and it's the first Doctor announcement that I've totally missed. And I think about 2 hours after it happened, my dad rang and was like, "So then, Jodie Whittaker's the Doctor," and I was like, "What? Oh, all right, fair enough." So yeah, no idea about it.
A good sign for things to come, Andy.
I was here. I was sat in this very room, not watching tennis. Even though I actually do like Wimbledon, but I wasn't watching it. I can't remember what I would have been doing. Probably playing Pokemon in some capacity. But I just remember Phil was in the bedroom and he caught the announcement and then sort of shouted me into the bedroom where he then showed me the clip. And then I saw the reveal and I was like, oh, yay! Female Doctor. Awesome. Great.
I do remember that my biggest feeling was disappointment because I was thoroughly just hoping it would be Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And that was such a weird thing.
She would have been so good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I prefer her more as a writer, like her work on stuff.
Yeah.
I prefer more like Fleabag. Something like I can appreciate that it's very good and very well made. It's just something I haven't 100% gelled with over the years.
It's not like it would have hurt Chibnall to have a bit of extra help in the writing department, would it?
Oh no, well, yeah, and that is I remember watching the final and seeing that come up, and I was never sort of disappointed. I was kind of like, it felt out of a female Doctor. It did feel sort of. I don't know if you felt like a bit safe. In terms of like, we'll get, because obviously it's like, it's a big thing for it to be the first female Doctor.
Woman.
But, as we'll get onto when we talk about Jo Martin, there are some amazing people out there that we would love to be a female Doctor and probably still would hopefully get to see at some point in the future.
Some point in this character's timeline, whether it will be in the future for us, whether they come before Hartnell, whether they come after Hartnell. I say we'll get into that when we get to that, but yeah, definitely other female actors need to step up, because I thought the transition before everything that happened, me and George said plenty of times, we would have preferred this female trend to continue.
Yeah, I really did want the next one and the one after to be female. Just so we it would then be about 10 years before it would get to being a man again. You'd have like, maybe Joe Martin take over from Jodie, and then like have like either like a Tilda Swinton, Emma Thompson, or Tania Miller. Like so you have like a plethora of different ages and backgrounds for the Doctor to sort of go on this sort of like mini journey as a woman.
Yeah.
To then, by the time they're a man again, then it's like, oh yeah, the Doctor can be a man, and then we just go from there of just, it's the person that fits, it's not the gender specific kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, doesn't mean I'm really excited for Shooty. I just think that it would have been nice for it to not feel like a gimmick, like, oh, we tried a woman and it didn't work, back to a man now.
Yeah, and that's my issue with the whole, as much as I love Tennant and he's my favourite Doctor, it really does feel like Russell T Davies was like, okay, first act, appease the arseholes. Just give them shit that's familiar you didn't like woman? Okay.
I've got a thing on that, but we'll get to that once we hit Power of the Doctor, I think. But I wasn't unhappy. I wasn't over, because I was very underwhelmed by the Capaldi announcement, if I remember rightly. I was kind of like, oh, that felt safe as well.
I was just surprised because he'd been in the show and Torchwood, so I was like, are they going to explain that? And then they kind of did.
But we get to fast forward to 25th of December 2017, the closing moments when we finally see her, and I was
half an hour ago. I was a Scottish white man.
Every regeneration, we all get, as a community of fans, we get excited and ready to at least give it a go. And I think the closing moments of Twice Upon a Time did nothing to put us against her. Like, it was kind of like, oh, she's not got a TARDIS and she's fallen to Earth. Like, how is this gonna affect Series 11? Turns out, not for very long, but excited because she seemed like giddy, like Tennant-ish, a bit like sort of weird and quirky, like Smith.
Yeah.
But a thing with the, I think we'll get on to with this Doctor, I don't think she ever really found her stride in herself.
I disagree. I that's the one thing from the era I would not fault as Jodie as the Doctor, and she's easily in my top 5 overall out of the 14 or 15 or whatever many it is now.
All of them.
I actually share Mike's opinion. Throughout the entire thing, I loved Jodie as the Doctor, and
I love her.
I was really sad when it was announced she was leaving, and I do think she may have crept into my top 5 potentially. I'd have to rewatch a lot of stuff to see if that still held up, but I feel like at least at the moment she's crept into my top 5 favourite Doctors.
I feel like she's good even in bad episodes, and unfortunately I can't say that about Smith or even Tennant.
No, I can say that about Matt Smith 100%, because half of those...
Dude, he's terrible. He's awful in Nightmare and Silver, dude.
No, but even in bad scripts, he is one that elevates it, and Jodie did that to a point, but I felt like Chibnall never really sort of nailed her down for a while, and it kind of took a little while to get to this is her Doctor. Like, she never really felt a settled.
Weirdly, I feel like that about Capaldi more than anything, because I just think that for the first season it was iffy.
Well, he's 3 different Doctors because he plays it different every fucking series, doesn't he? But shall we begin with Woman Who Fell to Earth? Does anyone want to kick us off?
Andy, I'll let you.
Why is it always me? Right. I remember sitting down to watch Woman Who Fell to Earth. Me and Phil, we cleared the evening because we knew Doctor was coming back. We sat down, waited for it to come on, and by the end, I was actually very happy. I still think Woman Who Fell to Earth holds up. I think it's a really good opening episode. In my opinion, I think it's still really quite good. It's not amazing, but I think it's pretty good. And I remember watching that and thinking, oh, this is going to be good. This era, if this is anything to go by, they've done a pretty good start. This should be good. And then the Ghost Monument happened. But anyway,
yeah.
Yeah, I felt this to sort of be like the sort of barometer for when rewatching this. This was kind of the barometer for my enjoyment because it was like either it's better than When You Fell to Earth or it's worse.
Yeah,
It felt very much like a
Yeah.
like it wasn't like outstanding, amazing, but it was like very good, very enjoyable, sort of easy watching, and it's far from terrible. I think it's definitely probably her best series opener. I think maybe Skyfall Part 1.
Goodness, I disagree just because of Spyfall Part 1, which I still really like. But
I actually agree with you, but okay. No, I agree. I think it is her best, but just.
I really enjoy I think it's the least annoying the companions are in Series 11.
Well, they've literally just walked into screen. They can't exactly be annoying yet if we don't know how they're annoying. They've just walked.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. Massively. Oh.
Yeah, I think Ryan's the weakest performance out of the three.
Yeah.
Like Bradley Walsh is just, Bradley Walsh and warm, cuddly, and fun, and yeah, it
for me improved.
He just glides through it.
So for me improved when I rewatched just his whole run. I just think, controversial. I preferred him over John Bishop. I don't think they're equal in my mind. I preferred Bradley Walsh. I miss Graham. I miss the Scouser. I missed him. Oh yeah,
he's not Scouser. Yeah, Dan's the Scouser.
Yeah. See, I got them muddled up. That's how effective they were. Oh, see, I'm good at this.
just call them the two white male comedian ones.
Yeah,
The two comedians.
I think Series 11 obviously is probably Yaz's weakest in terms of a lot of it is the grief of Graham and Ryan and culminates properly and it takes you away.
Yaz does get Demons of the Punjab to shine, so...
Yeah. She does, but that's like one episode.
That's when she gets relevant.
Yeah.
From that point onwards, that's when the show becomes...
She gets one episode out of, if you count Resolution, 11, where she actually really gets something to do.
Yeah.
Like, I remember around the time Series 11 was airing, one of the comments that kept coming up all the time, because I was still like quite heavy into Doctor Who Twitter at this point, was just, what like, Yaz did nothing again.
Yeah,
and that just became a running thing of the series because Yaz did nothing until, like, literally, she did something in Woman Who Fell to Earth because it's when she was introduced. Demons of the Punjab. That's about it. I mean, she actually
was pretty good in Arachnids, right?
Yeah, I liked her mum, but that episode was an episode that indeed happened. You know what? We'll get onto it when we get into Arachnids, but I have a personal gripe with Arachnids that I will get into. That I think out of everyone here, only I can really get.
What's wrong with spiders?
What's wrong with spiders? No, I like spiders. Like, I want to get a tattoo of one, but like.
No.
Does anyone have one as a pet? Does anyone keep spiders as a pet?
No, definitely.
What was that, George?
I think Connor said about does anyone have pet spiders?
Yeah.
No, I have pet spider men.
If it wasn't for the fact that Phil is terrified of them, I probably would.
Fair enough.
So the villain in Woman Who Fell to Earth, like as with most sort of post-regeneration stories, like a la, like the 11th Hour, the villain isn't really the focus. It's kind of your new lead settling in, finding themselves, getting the costume, getting the TARDIS, but obviously we don't get that until an episode's time.
What's it? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. I think the post-regenerative scattiness is normally something to look forward to because it's kind of always different. But this felt like very sort of like done before, breathing out the Artron, sort of being a bit in between Smith's just having to get on with it and the Tenant Capaldi, resting stuff. It felt a bit it felt generic Doctor written, but she did with what she got. And I think this is a theme that I'm going to say a lot is, despite what Jodie was given, probably not servicing her very well, she made it seem like it was written better for her than it was, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I was going to say, I actually didn't mind that a lot of the post-regeneration stuff kind of just felt like going through the motions, because it helped kind of establish that this. I think because so many changes happened at once. We've got new showrunner, we've got a new doctor who also happens to be a woman, which we've never had before. Got all these new companions. It almost felt nicely familiar for that to happen in a way, if that makes sense. Plus, I will always be a fan of the part. I can't remember what the exact line is, but I'm sure it's when the doctor zaps Ryan's phone and he's like, "Oh, all my it's like all my photos are on there or something," and she just goes, "Not anymore." Like, I liked that bit. I just thought that was quite funny, but that was mainly just because of Jodie's performance.
Fair enough.
Are we? Yeah. Sorry, Mike. You carry on.
Yeah, well, I haven't given my thoughts. My overall thought when I first watched The Woman Who Fell to Earth was disappointment, because this is really nerdy of a gripe, but being a Star Trek fan, I recognized Tim Shaw as a ripoff of a few other Star Trek things, but especially the Herosian from Voyager, and was just like, is that the best Chibnall can do for a new villain? Like, oh, it's a hunter species that wants to hunt people. I've seen this 1,000 times. And I think now the era's over, it's safe to say that he doesn't do well with newly created villains.
No.
God, no.
Justice for the Pting.
Exactly, free the Pting.
The fact that I can probably safely say that the only Chibnall made villain that I liked was Swarm and Azure, and even then,
Nope.
for the first half of Flux, I loved them.
Nah,
and then
they're nothing. They're
Yeah.
so pointless. They're nothing. They don't have any, like, what's their motivation? What's their purpose? What did they ultimately do? How were they defeated? I can't answer any of those questions. They just look fine, you know? No. Anyway.
I thoroughly enjoyed their performances. But yes. No.
But no, yeah, I agree with that, Mike. That new villains, not Chibnall's strongest
yeah,
point. But on the
strongest
flip
thing.
side of that, when we get to it, obviously, like, I think returning villains that he wrote,
Yes.
completely different story.
Minus Sea Devils.
Minus
Sea Devils.
Minus, yes, yeah.
Minus
No,
what was that?
except the Sea
Oh,
Devils.
Sea Devils.
Minus Sea Devils, yeah.
Like the Woman Who Fell to Earth, like I said, for some reason, my initial disappointment was like it was overriding when I first saw it. But I also enjoyed it feels almost wrong to say it, but the Tennant-esque energy that Jodie had during the regen, because I was like, okay, this is familiar. And after Capaldi's kind of, I'm grumpy start to his era, I was like, okay, I can appreciate a doctor that's like, I'm fun, I'm bubbly, I'm going to save the world, I love everybody. So I was fine with that. But I just didn't like the villain enough that it really affected my opinion. But it's one of the few episodes I've watched a couple of times since. And I do think my opinion has improved, because I think other than Tim Shaw, it's not actually that bad. And I think I was thinking it was worse because if Tim Shaw hadn't come back at the end of the season like he was a big important thing, it probably wouldn't have been as bad. Because, you know, if you watch it in isolation during that one episode, that's fine. But I think it kind of, Ransko Ravkolos infects it retrospectively.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Unfortunately,
And so to a point does Ghost Monument, because and so to a point does Ghost Monument, because that's when it's like, oh, the Stenza are this horrible race
Warrior
that have done
race,
this thing, and it's like, oh, they're going to be
epic folklore in Who history that we've never heard of until now, but oh wait, you're going to see why they're not so legendary in the finale. Yeah, we'll get to it.
Right. So I actually quite liked Tim Shaw in this. I remember thinking. I mean, guess I don't have the sort of point that Mike does about the Trek thing. So I guess maybe that didn't affect my enjoyment. But in Woman Who Fell to Earth, I thought he was fine. I actually quite enjoyed his performance in that one. That opinion would change by the end of the series, but in Woman Who Fell to Earth, I enjoyed him in Woman Who Fell to Earth. And also one part that I'm very, very fond of, and this kind of is going to tie into what I'm going to say about arachnids, but like that scene on the crane was filmed down the hill from where I live. Like the crane yard that they filmed the climax of Woman Who Fell to Earth, and it's literally a 2-minute drive down the hill from where I live. So like seeing that in Who and recognizing where they were and having the new Doctor do this big, like, empowering. Because she had her "I am the Doctor" moment up on top of one of those cranes, and it like every time I drive past, I don't drive, but every time I get drove past it now, I just look
Like
and
you
I'm
sound
like,
famous.
"Oh, Jodie was up there. That's why she did the "I am the Doctor" bit," and like that that just kind of means a lot to me. So maybe I have rose tinted glasses with this episode because of that. But like, yeah,
I mean, it's much the
that-
same as
that
Will
means a
with
lot to me.
the bridge in Revolution of the Daleks, probably. But
Yeah.
I love that you sort of like, you know, it alluded to like you getting driven around like a chauffeur-driven limo, Andy. Just like when my driver take me past all the Doctor Who locations now. I want to see the brain of Morbius.
Where I do theatre rehearsals, to get there we have to drive past that. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, like having it near you is kind of like this, you know. This show does take place in the real world, at least in my head, doesn't it? It's like, you know,
Just
point of
think, Andy,
reference.
you could have been the one to inexplicably return at the end of Eve of the Daleks.
Yeah. But no, so I completely admit that part of my love for this episode probably is down to personal bias because of that. So like, I'm not going to sit here and bullshit and say, no, it's nothing to, it's probably a lot to do with that. But at the same time, I do still think there is a good episode attached to that, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I completely get that.
There's also there's a really good, other than the crane moment, because this is a one where I could name a load of great moments, and that's how I know it's an episode that I kind of like. I also love the moment at the end when inexplicably, just out of nowhere, she starts talking about like, do you have family? Yeah, but I just, you know, I go on and keep them as part of me. Similar to the Troughton line, I guess, from Tomb of the Cybermen. I just love that moment, and I think that was another kind of like, this is the Doctor moment. But yeah, do you want my final score for that episode?
Go for it, Mike, because I feel like we've kind of said all the things. It's not amazing, it's not terrible, it's a really enjoyable like hour of telly where some stuff was promised and then we had a thing of they're in space and we had a proper cliffhanger of like, oh my god, they're gonna suffocate Bradley Walsh in space.
Oh, yeah, I never even mentioned that. I actually quite like the cliffhanger. I think it's quite good. It means nothing by the end, like by the start of the next week, but I do think it was a pretty good way to end it.
Oh yes, definitely. What's your score?
Well, I gave it 7 out of 10, which, you know, it
seems fair. I would give it probably like 6.5, 7. Yeah.
I also gave it a 7.
Cool.
I would say 6.5, but again, the only reason it's that number is because it does kind of dip before the unfortunate act of grace. For me, the episode just kind of dips for that little bit in the runtime. But then aside from the beginning I like, the middle, it dips, the end happens, and then the cliffhanger, which was amazing at the time, but ultimately meant nothing. Yeah, I just think it's a run-of-the-mill average, but good introduction to this era.
Yes.
I forgot to mention, I do like that it's not a big thing, but I like how Jodie gets her costume. Again, it's kind of reminiscent of 11, where he's in the hospital and he goes into like this room and just there's all the clothes that the patients had and he just nicks some. But then like she just goes into a charity shop and nicks some. But I quite liked that.
Yeah, I think it's quite, when we get to her being a like fully formed Doctor, she's kind of like, oh, this is going to be an interesting journey to go on. Retrospectively, like seeing it again, I felt a lot more love towards Series 11 than I had in the past, mainly because like the scheduling of Doctor Who has always been a problem in the last 5, 6, 7 years. So it felt like this coming literally a year, like this is like the clean slate series. Like there's no returning villains, new cast, new companion, new showrunner, but it happens after Series 10, which is kind of doing the same thing. So it kind of just felt like we'd had 2 sort of vanilla seasons back to back, and it's not like we'd had that and then a year and then this, because maybe I would have felt different on it. But going back and watching this like with sort of fresh eyes and knowing the final destination, it was kind of, especially this, like as a start, it's kind of like, yeah, this is going to be a fun era and we're kind of going to, get into some scrapes and see what happens and, just, see where we end up. But I really did, I dug it. Not the best of this era, but certainly not the worst, which is why I think for me in my list, it's kind of like slap bang in the middle. It was kind of the barometer that I took this on. So Ghost Monument, episode 2, the cliffhanger picks up. We actually get our full first look at the title sequence and the theme tune, which was, I think is probably one of the best.
Yeah, before I get into shitting on this episode, I just do want to take a moment to praise something. I actually love the visuals of the title. The visuals of the title sequence of this era is my favorite of all of New Who. I love how this title sequence looks. I think it's stunning. Not quite my favorite version of the theme. Series 4 still has that title, but I really do really like this version of the theme song as well.
It grew on me, these visuals, this time on the rewatch. They really sort of did strike a note, and I was like, I really do like this. Why did I not like it as much as I did?
I don't really have much to say.
Ghost Monument, it fucking sucks. Sorry, Mike, go on.
I was just gonna say that I don't really have much to say about Ghost Monument because it doesn't deserve very much. But the only kind of notes that I have and my only thoughts about it are the Timeless Child name drop was intriguing at the time. But
then it took like 2.5 years to pay off.
Jodie finds the TARDIS and it's a ghost monument. That's really cool. The rest of it just seemed like a low tier Big Finish. Unfortunately, it was filmed, so yeah, not great for me.
For the sake of the plot, though, it being the TARDIS, being the Ghost Monument, just felt very convenient. Like we and George have said previously, like we would have preferred if the TARDIS was gone for at least a couple more episodes to have more of a
because when Chibnall was like, we don't like this isn't going to be like series arcs. This is kind of going to be very standalone, and we're just going to establish new things. But then with the cliffhanger of them going to look for the TARDIS, I was sort of thinking like, oh, this could be a fun way of sort of having like a minute. Like it couldn't have lasted for the whole series.
No, God, no.
But like, had it lasted like a couple more of like, it's kind of the search for the TARDIS to get that back, and then because they would have been on these adventures and scrapes and trying to cobble together technology to get out there and find it. They would have obviously become more tight knit friends, and it would have been made sense for them to then travel together. Instead of like, oh, get you home, and then like, oh, I'm really sad now that you're going home. Can I come around yours for tea, kind of thing? Because that whole scene feels fucking weird. But I think Sean Dooley was okay in what he was given. He was kind of just generic arsehole, villainish guy. Fighting.
He's a better actor than this. I've seen him in other stuff. He was great in Misfits, but then in this, he's just so bland.
He's very one note, isn't he?
I don't think that's helped by the fact that the episode itself is just extremely bland.
Yep.
It feels very it's point A to point B, and the TARDIS is the thing they're looking for, but they don't know it until sort of like a little bit of the way through. Obviously, this series was the first, and at this point only, to sort of have the next time or coming soon for the Series B. These are all the guest stars we've got this series. Maybe one of them can tickle your fancy, and that's the episode you kind of come back for thing. So that was also a new, because we didn't really know anything about these episodes going into them, and like until we got the next time trailers from this episode onwards, kind of thing. But this did feel, I enjoyed, like I even said to Will, like I enjoyed this more than I remember, but it's not great. Like it's not good Who. It's kind of like, it's like filler. Like it's kind of like, let's do this because something has to happen for us to get the TARDIS back. So let's do this one.
But
there's so many moments that are really poorly written for me, and like emblematic of that is Ryan taking on the sniper bots with the logic being, I played Call of Duty, so now I'm a fantastic marksman. Like, fuck off, man. That's a middle-aged man writing what he thinks kids are like. Is what that is.
Oh my god! Right, let me get into this episode. I mean, I think bland is really the best way to describe it. But like the fact that we get a filler episode, literally the second episode of the season, where usually most episodes too, at least something happens. We get to know the companion a bit better. Usually the companion, like I'm trying to think of some examples. So like,
we figure out why Amy has to.
Yeah, like take the beast below. It's not brilliant. I actually like that episode way more than I think most people do. It's not brilliant. But like a lot, some interesting stuff happens. There's a good story in there, and Amy's the one who gets to essentially save the day. And that's kind of the trope, is that the companions kind of are the ones to do the thing in episode 2. So we get a moment to be like, oh, that's why the Doctor picked them. They have, they have the it factor that makes them a good companion. In this, it's literally just 3 normal people following the Doctor through this fucking desert looking for something, which we only find out partway through is the TARDIS. Then Ryan fights some sniper bots, which is one of the worst scenes of the era. Because, and here's the other thing as well. They establish at some point, I think in the first episode, that Ryan has dyspraxia. And then at no point is that ever used until Kablam.
Yeah,
Right,
that is
yeah,
true. And I
yeah.
don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, that it's really used after until he
No,
rides
it's
the bike in
used-
Revolution.
Yeah.
It does come
it's
up in
used-
Ransker of Colours, yeah.
Does it?
Yeah, believe me, I had to rewatch and review it. It does briefly come up, but it's like it's dropped and then that's it.
Yeah, but the only times it ever actually makes a significant impact on Ryan as a character is Kablam, and even then it's minor. And either Ascension or Timeless. I think it's Timeless Children when he has to like throw the bomb thing. Like, and in that episode, it actually works because there's a big thing with Ryan where he's like, "No, it won't work. I'll miss. I can't do this. I'm bad with this kind of thing." And he has a moment, and that was probably one of Tosin Cole's better acting moments as well. Like, we have a moment where this character trait is actually brought up and used in a way to bring suspense to the episode, but it's just. One of my biggest problems with this era is how inconsistent it is with a lot of, especially character stuff, and the fact that we literally have this fact established of Ryan. Let's use Ryan as a good example. We have it established that he makes YouTube videos, that he has dyspraxia in episode 1. The first one never comes up again. We never get that back again, which is annoying because I feel like what could have been kind of cool is if we have a callback to that in Revolution of the Daleks, which we don't. And then the dyspraxia thing literally gets brought up maybe 3 times after it's mentioned. But that one's more egregious because Ryan then does stuff that normally would be impacted by dyspraxia with no fucking problem.
Yeah, true.
So not only is it really annoying for continuity, but it also is a little bit shitty to have this representation for people with dyspraxia and then never use it.
I will say I have. The whole YouTube thing is one of my bugbears because I know it was a whole point in that stupid freaking 5-hour "this is why this sucks" video, and it reeks of somebody who doesn't understand writing. It's a framing device. It's not supposed to be indicative of his character. It's just to get you into the story. If you watch that and thought, "Oh, this is going to be important going forward," then you don't understand media, frankly.
No, I didn't want it to be an important thing going forward. I just kind of wish that they called back to it when he left. I just thought
it's something they could have done, but I certainly don't think it was like they wrote it that it was super important that he's a YouTuber and never use it. No, it didn't. It was just a clever way to get you into the episode. Just like that would be like saying, "What's the most notable thing about Elton Pope?" "Oh, he makes video diaries." No, it's not. That's just to get you into the story. You know?
Yeah, but also that episode starts with him doing one and ends with him doing one. Like, it is like bookended by it. It's like not like, I'm not saying it should have been like vindictive of his character, but it's kind of like it sets it up that he kind of does this stuff, or you at least interpret it to be that he does this at least semi-regularly. Like, this is kind of like this is kind of a thing that he has done
on
before.
The side, yeah.
And obviously that it's never addressed before or since, but obviously there's that could have been the DVD extras instead of TARDISodes. You could have had Ryan's vlogs kind of thing. That's maybe how in the RTD era that would have sort of gone through, that it would have kind of been there, but as like a treat for like the audience. I don't think it needed to be sort of called on again, but it kind of was a bit weird. It's like it was kind of in the first 5-10 minutes of the episode, here's Ryan as a character, okay, and then all the things that he kind of said made him a character were never really addressed or used or part of his story. Apart from Grace, and her death, I don't think he had a driving, like, force narratively.
Yeah.
I feel like that was one of Chibnall's better kind of writings of exposition, though, because at least it gives you the device as a reason why. Like, would you really have preferred that scene if it was like 90% of his other scenes and it was in a scene with somebody else and he's like, "Oh, Yaz, let me tell you about the best woman I've ever known. This is the story." And it's like, no, that's not how people talk to each other. But it is how you talk if you were you were making a video blog.
I like how it's used as a framing device in A Woman Who Fell to Earth. I think I just kind of hoped that they'd have done it as a way to round off his character in Revolution. I feel like that would have been... Especially because, like, as we now know, we don't see him again after Revolution. He doesn't come back in Power of the Doctor. So, like, I would have quite liked that as, like, a way to bookend his character, is if he just kind of rounded it off doing like a very similar style video to he did with Grace, but he's talking about the Doctor in this instance.
Yeah.
I just thought that'd been nice. But yeah, the big one is the dyspraxia. And another gripe I have with the Ghost Monument. This is something I'm probably going to mention a lot. It's not every single time he brings in a queer character, but and this is probably one of the less egregious examples, to be honest. But the fact that like this era was all about inclusivity, and then we get literally one throwaway line from I think the character's called Angstrom. I think that's her name. I can't remember the female pilot. Like we get one throwaway line about her having a wife because when the stems are mentioned, Graham says, "Oh, they killed my wife," and she just looks at him and goes, "Mine too." That's literally the only like type of representation we get in like this entire series. I want to say
in series 11, probably. Yeah.
We apart from in Resolution, where we get the guy who works at the that sort of office building who has a throwaway line about, "Oh, you know, my boyfriend's cooking me this," and then literally he just gets killed straight away. I
don't think that's exclusive to Chibnall though. Moffat and RTD used to drop that a lot as if it was.
No, I'm not saying that's just Chibnall. Like until Bill, Moffat's track record with queer characters was very hit or miss. Like I think. Yeah.
But even RTD, I mean, look at Gridlock with the whole like, "Oh, don't the talk of an old-fashioned cat. You can't have a wife."
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. That's the thing. Even as a queer person, RTD was quite guilty of it in his era as well. So yeah. But yeah, this is just one of the examples of times where Chibnall's tried to do a queer character. And I'm like, oh, that's not how you do it.
I genuinely forgot that moment completely because she's such a nothing character.
Exactly, because she's such a nothing character. But like, maybe it's just as a queer person, that's why I find it annoying. It just bugs me. But anyway, yeah. So what score did I give the Ghost Monument? Because it's such a nothing episode.
I can tell you mine if you want.
Go on. What was yours?
I gave it 2 out of 10.
I also gave it 2.
I probably would have given it like a 4, something like that.
3.5 just to even it out. No, yeah.
That episode just. You know what I don't think helps is I watched it twice the night it came out. Not by I watched it. I watched it at my parents when it came out because I was there and I was like, "Oh, Doctor Who will be on. Do you mind if I put it on?" So I watched it at my parents. Got back from my parents later that night, and Phil was like, "Oh, I waited to watch Doctor Who. Do you want to watch it?" And I felt bad because I'd watched it at my parents. I was like, "Oh, fine, put it on. I'll watch it again." And by the end of the second run through, I was like, "I really didn't like this episode."
Yeah.
Okay, should we move on to probably one of the more positive notes of not just the series, but possibly the era in Rosa?
Yeah.
If you say so. I mean, I don't agree with that assessment, but all right.
I'd say it's at least my favourite episode of Series 11, and it's probably in my top 10 Jodie stories, just because it's a episode that I think benefits from someone else writing most of it. The companions all are useful, basically, in a way, and it teaches us a lot about a character that I wasn't taught a lot about in school. I know other people like cousins and that knew a lot more about her when it was like, "Oh, you didn't know about Rosa Parks?" And I was like, "No." And then like,
sorry,
this shouldn't obviously be the basis, but obviously it did feel very hand-holdy at the end with, and here's why you must not be racist because it's bad, and Rosa Parks is still very important, and we must keep doing this. See you next week. Like that was the only bit where it was kind of like, oh, it felt very.
I think there were worse moments than that, to be honest. And sorry to jump in, but I mean, I like the episode a lot. I'm not saying it's bad, but I just think it should never have gotten past script stage that they were like, we need an enemy for our Rosa Parks episode. What's the best thing you can come up with? Space racist? That'll do.
Oh, he is absolutely the worst thing about this episode.
Like, just do a pure historical if you're going to do that. Don't just have it be like, oh, well, it's an episode all about Rosa Parks and she's famous for the whole anti-racist thing. Let's just make it a futuristic racist.
It felt like he wanted a pure historical, but then was like, we've kind of got to have a reason. We've got to have someone to fight against Rosa Parks, essentially. And it was kind of like, an easy thing. I'd not say like it was kind of like the most obvious thing is just to have the character be someone that obviously hated her in the same way, like the oppression that she fights in her life anyway. It felt very much like we can't really have a fight in a like a Slovene or something, so let's, it will just be a space racist who's kind of got a Captain Jack thing and maybe some ties to the same prison as River. Like, make it so.
I feel like it was so badly written because, like, it almost sort of lessens the impact of the whole racism thing because he's so stupidly over the top. Like, it's like the most basic idea of how you write a racist. So
wasn't his plan basically just, I'm going to change the bus schedule as well?
Yeah, but even his motivation is just like, oh, I've been held down by people like you. It's like, it's really just like, no. I mean, I'm the most liberal woke person there is, and I'm still like, at least write something realistic. This is like Spike Lee writing a white man dialogue. You know what I mean? Like, I hate all the blacks. Just come on, give us something.
No, yeah, I get that. It just like, I enjoyed it, and I thought, what's her face who played Rosa?
Vivian. Oh, was it Vivian?
No,
what was her name? No.
Why am I blanking on this? She's really good.
Yeah.
She was in 42 and got burnt into a shadow. She was great.
I can't believe I'm not remembering this.
What was her name? I'm looking for it now.
It does begin with a V, I'm sure.
Something
like Vinette Robinson.
Vinette
Robinson. Well done, Michael. But she was great. It gave obviously some context to, actually having companions having to deal with horrible stuff which you've not seen, because normally it's like I travel with, mainly just white people, or if I've got Martha Jones, it'll just be like, oh, just walk around like you own the place and nothing bad will happen to you. So that was, I mean, like, it wasn't nice to see, but it was nice to sort of have a thing of like, oh, time travel isn't all glitz and glamour. Like, it is horrible. It's a horrible place to be sometimes, and you're not always safe. I think also, like, it was one of the episodes that used the aspect of the Doctor being a woman, like she was at a disadvantage in that episode, or she felt like she always had to explain herself, or like, I'd say this and the Witchfinders is where she's kind of like, if I was a man, I wouldn't have to be dealing with this kind of shit, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say one thing that I really like. I really appreciate this episode for is I don't think they could have done this episode if it wasn't for the fact that we had two companions of color in this. Like, that helps.
I think it's also about that Graham was married to Grace, because the best moment in the episode is him being forced to take the kind of empty seat, and his wrestling with that of like, I don't want to do this because he's obviously an ally, and it's painful for him. Like, more of that in the episode would have been great.
Yeah. But I always, for some reason, vividly remember just that scene with Ryan and Yaz together. Like, that was one of the few moments where I liked Ryan, was that moment, because it actually felt like it came from a genuine place, and that was a really nice moment.
I thought his acting really hurt what should have been really powerful moments, like in the cafe, and then the awful moment when it's like, oh yeah, I'm just talking to Martin Luther King, and it's like, oh, this scene should be so powerful, but you're so bad at acting.
I think the acting like speaks for itself, but also the basic, like, with the scripts, like, there is so much just janky expository, like, crap dialogue that I think all four of them end up with a bunch of lines that are just like, even with, like, jumping ahead to series 12 when Ryan's talking, like, he's with the Doctor and O and talking about the Vord or whatever, and Sacha Dhawan even says like, oh, you're just here for the running commentary. Like, it's even taking the piss out of itself in that regard, of just, they all say the most obvious thing, because Chibnall should adopt more of a show don't tell vibe, but
somebody posted this on social media the other day, and it never occurred to me, and now I can't unsee it, which is Chibnall writes scripts like he is writing a Big Finish, like an audio drama. Like, he has to describe what you're seeing as if you can't see it, but it's there.
It'll come up more, but that is one of my huge gripes with this. It's just so bad. it's so bad at doing show not tell. It tells you everything even when you can see it, and that leads to the just egregious exposition dumps that we always get that were prevalent throughout this entire era.
Yeah.
Do we have any more to say on Rosa as an episode specifically, or do we want to score it and get to Andy's meltdown of arachnids?
Well, Rosa, I think, was good, but should have been great. And I've seen this done better in other shows and even in Doctor Who. So it lost a bit of the sheen, but it is still powerful and it is still an important story. So I gave it 8 out of 10.
I also gave it an 8.
I also would give it an 8 because I did really enjoy it, and at the time I was like, oh, this is what this era of the show is going to try and do. Do you like more of the old style of educate and stuff like that? And it was powerful. I get your points about the weaknesses within it, and it's far and away not a perfect episode.
Oh God, no.
In general, but in terms of the rest of this era, it kind of rose to the top for me a lot more at the time, and still kind of stays around about in the same place. Maybe drop down a bit with other stuff and more appreciation, but I really love Rosa and the message it tries to at least.
It just misses out on my top 10 of the era, but it is up there as one of the better ones.
I will say, if you'll give me this opportunity to just geekily plug something else, go watch the Deep Space Nine episode Far Beyond the Stars, which is 10 plus out of 10 for the way it handles like ingrained racism in the 50s and sort of the way people had to deal with that. I better go. My food is here. I will be 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm literally gonna say an 8 as well, not just for agreement's sake, but like George, it definitely it roses above near the top. Pun absolutely intended, but it does. There's something about it. I think. Oh, all right, you going as well.
No, I've got time.
Oh. I think it absolutely does rose to the top. It definitely stands out. Some of the effects that we all discussed sort of knocks it down a couple spots, but without saying it's the best out of a bad bunch of episodes, because I mean, Series 11 for me ain't nowhere near bad, but Rosa still was the same when I watched it nearly 5 years ago for me.
I think that's fair enough. Andy, do you want to have a fucking brain fart over arachnids and we can just laugh for a little bit?
Right. The thing is, though, even though it is one of the worst episodes of the era, I give it an extra point because I enjoy it for how shit it is. But my biggest gripe of the episode is that it is the episode by far, as far as I know, because I haven't seen all of Classic, but as far as I know, this is the episode of Doctor Who that takes place the most in the city I live in, which is Sheffield. And this is the episode that, if anyone thinks of Sheffield and Doctor Who, this is what they're going to think of, and that pisses me off.
You think the episode's so poor quality that it's given Sheffield
a bad name,
the worst media representation imaginable.
It's so bad, and this is what my city's going to be thought of with Doctor Who. There's so many places they film in this episode that I go past on a regular basis, like where Yaz's flats are. They're student flats. I know where they are. I go past them on a semi-regular basis. You can see them from the city centre. There's the Ponds Forge Bridge. All of this stuff that I see really regularly and was so cool to see in Doctor Who and be like, oh, I've been there. Oh, I've been there. I walk past there all the time. To have that be shat on by such a shit episode is really annoying.
Yeah, I get that. This was on the rewatch, the first one that I watched, where I was like, this is definitively bad, but I still was kind of like, I get that this is kind of meant to be like Aliens to London World War 3. They're coming back where it's like home with the companions. You see a bit of their home life, establish them more as real, like people, and then the threats come to your family, and it's kind of a thing of like, oh, this is, a dangerous life. I don't want my family involved in it, whatever. Like, it's, do I stay, do I go now, kind of thing. I get what he was trying to do, but it kind of just feels half-assed. You got the Trump allegory of Jack Robertson. You've got
typical Saturday afternoon cartoon villain, but yes, I think he did 100%. The job great. I think he was just personally the highlight. I thought he was great.
He's better in this than he is in Revolution. Yes.
Yeah, no, he sucked in Revolution. But for this story, I thought he was really effective, and he was just a gag reel for me.
I don't know.
I thought he was going to be sort of a recurring thing of like, eventually he was going to, run for president, and it would be the thing of that's how you do, like, there's a power in the world that knows of the Doctor and is kind of an enemy of her, and that's going to make...
That would have been really cool, and I was kind of hoping they were going to build up to something like that, and then again it just goes nowhere because he doesn't appear again after Revolution.
I mean, Russell could pick that thing up, but I very much doubt it, because that would be...
I kind of hope he doesn't.
Oh yeah, but I like Yaz's family. Obviously, I know that the main story that they have is obviously demons, but I do like the way she describes her family is much worse than actually seeing them. When she's like, my sister's trying to get me to move out, or my dad drives me bananas, and it's like, is that it? Is that how people talk about their family that they live with? But then seeing them, it's kind of like it felt like a family dynamic between the four of them. Like, that was a nice thing, because we hadn't had that for a while, because Clara didn't have it, and obviously Bill's mum had passed, so we kind of only really...
And Amy didn't have it either. We never really saw her family apart from briefly in the Big Bang, so like the last companion we'd have really had that with is probably Donna.
My mum and dad are back through the crack, and they'll be back forever, but we won't see him ever again. Augustus Pond. What a great fucking... Justice for Augustus.
What was I going to say? This episode is bad. The fact that they defeat the giant mutant spiders with Stormzy is...
That felt very
laughable.
Yeah. Like his line about Call of Duty, this was very down with the kids.
Yeah, I think that was probably the two bits I didn't like. They're the two bits I didn't like.
But it's okay. I think it's, head and shoulders probably the worst of this series.
Yeah, come on.
Maybe with
No.
Ranskor Avkalos, but it's the first one I was like, oh, this is bad, but I've got to watch it. So
I'm just gonna show my score. I give it a 2, but I only give it a 2 because I give it a bonus point. Because, like I said earlier, I actually kind of enjoy it for how bad it is. It's it's one of those few episodes where it's so bad it's actually kind of enjoyable.
I mean, it's far from the immense quality of Horns of Nymon. Let's be clear about that. That is the definitive. It's so shit. It's magical. But no, I get that, because I felt a lot I think maybe I was just less angry when I rewatched it like the last week or so, because I was just like, just letting it pass. Maybe I'm just getting old and just letting
perspective and time go by.
I'm just like, there is no point. This is meaningless. We are all whittling away our finite time before the grave. Let me just think that this spider story is okay. But the title really pisses me off. Like, why is it Arachnids in the UK?
It's such a bad title, and it's just Sheffield as well.
Well, yeah.
But I think Arachnids in Sheffield would sound even worse. To be honest.
It would. I think that's probably why they called it in the UK.
They could have called it Sheffield Spiders or something like.
Well, that sounds shit. I wouldn't watch it.
They should have just taken a note out of movies books and just call it because it's basically a comedy at this point. Just call it Eight-Legged Freaks. That's a horror comedy about giant spiders. Just call it that.
Yeah, but I digress. What would you have given the episode? I probably would have given it like a 2 as well, 2 or 3.
7.5. Come on, guys. I think it's a decent watch. It's entertaining. It's a decent watch. I think it's alright.
I think that's why I gave it the extra point, because at the end of the day, I do think it's entertaining. I think it's hot garbage, but it's entertaining. It's like what would I call? It's like Big Brother back when that was watchable. It's like, it's hot garbage, but it'll pass an hour.
Those lines about Cod, though, and Stormzy, alright, subjective on music, but yeah, I think that's a bit naff. And then the spiders I would criticise. I weren't a big fan of the actual spider design, the arachnid design. But other than that, I don't know. James North, Chris North. I think he's all right. He does his job well. Saturday morning.
I think it's
cartoon
just
villain.
weird that
I
they
think
could
he's-
actually afford him because it was like, oh, we've got the budget for this guy,
Yeah,
and we're going to give him a character that's basically
an
Donald
arsehole.
Trump.
Yeah,
Oh.
American arsehole.
To be fair, it's in a much better episode, but we've got Alan Cumming to come yet. I still can't believe they managed to get Alan Cumming in Doctor Who.
Alan Cumming, and I will go on for the next 4 hours about how he is probably the best guest star of this era.
Oh, he was phenomenal. He was so good that me and Phil still say things in the way he I love how he says like lassie. It's so stupid, but I love it. It's so funny.
Unlike is it Saranga Conundrums next? It is,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Oh.
What about Mike?
It won't.
Sure he's getting to chuck his scoring when he comes back.
Pregnant
yeah,
man.
We'll get his not. I thought you were talking about Mike.
Yeah,
That's a bit horrible.
The pregnant man.
We'll get into Chucky's score on that when he pops back in. So, the Saranga Conundrum, a story I didn't like at all on broadcast.
Yep.
But this time round, I was kind of like, this is not as bad as I
Shit.
thought.
Disgusting. Burn it to the ground. Atrocious.
But it's got Brett Goldstein in it. And
Yeah, right. Who does fuck all and gets shafted out of a spaceship? He does fuck all. I forgot he was even in it.
But the Pting.
And the Pting, they're a knockoff of the Adipose. I don't care. I'd rather watch the Adipose.
When George said that Arachnids was the worst episode of the series, and I sort of pulled a face, it's because we still have Saranga and Battle of Ranskarov Kolos to talk about. This, in retrospect, I actually don't have it as the worst episode of the year. I think I have it as the third worst, but I fucking hate Saranga Conundrum. I think it's it's basically the same as Arachnids in the sense that I think it's hot garbage. However, it doesn't get a bonus point for being enjoyable because I remember finishing this episode and actively being like, no, I don't think angry is the right word, but I finished this episode and I was just like, that was fucking shit. Which is something I very rarely actually feel with Doctor Who. I finished that episode and was like, that was awful.
For me, in this particular episode, every line that every companion said, it had the feeling of, was that meant to be funny? Was that meant to have an effect for me? Because I was literally just sitting there going, more? Like, what was the point of those lines? I just thought the delivery, the actual lines amongst the dialogue, the banter between the fam in this season, if you want to call them that, I hated all of it. There's not one thing about this episode I don't like.
I don't know if this is going to be a controversial opinion. I don't understand why we needed the plot line about the pregnant man.
Exactly. Save it for another episode.
But it's in space, and we've got sonic mines, and we're on a junk planet that's basically a plot of an old Red Dwarf episode, and we'll just get blown up, and now we're in space, and we can't find the TARDIS.
And we're, oh no, it's Stitch!
Yeah, it was basically. I felt like it was trying to be like, let's do a thing like Aliens, where there's a bunch of survivors on a ship, and there's one creature that's going to take us down, but it's cute and actually adorable, but that's not the alien you'd expect, but it's going to eat the shit out of everyone.
Because it can. Yeah, you look at it and you think, that thing ain't going to do fucking shit, but because it's a script, it's like, oh, don't underestimate it. That's the threat. The cute cuddly thing that we had from 2008 is back with a reskin and with a different name. The name is awful as well. I hate Pting. That's what.
A lot of the alien names in this era are god awful. Like what else have we got to come up? We've got the Ux. We've got is it the? I can never remember their name. The things from Demon of the Punjab.
The Jarians.
It's the Jarians. Why they didn't come back for Power of the Doctor, I don't know. I kind of hoped I was hoping they would. I thought it would kind of fit if they did, but they didn't. What other god awful alien names have we got to come up? We didn't even talk about the fucking rags in the Ghost Monument. The fuck were they?
The fucking
The fuck were they?
They were a
Gun rag.
budget saver, is what they were.
The magic car.
The magic.
The Ghost Monument, the episode where the Doctor fights toilet roll.
But it's wise toilet roll. It knows all about the
And you know what? I was going to say, you know what the most annoying part about the fucking toilet roll is? They're the only thing that we get about the Timeless Child before Series 12.
Yeah.
The one bit of build-up we have for the Timeless Tyler's child in Series 11 is a throwaway line spoken by a piece of shit-covered toilet roll. Oh.
And that's even without the filter put on top of it. The visual filter.
And I think we've just
I
found.
believe you're only up to the
title
Saranga
for part
conundrum.
one.
What are your scores for arachnids in the UK and Saranga, Mike?
Yeah, brief thoughts on arachnids.
Sorry. My thoughts on arachnids. It's not very good. It's primarily just boring. The whole Donald Trump metaphor is way too on the nose. The idea that I have to give a crap about them killing spiders is the height of how stupidly preachy this era got. And 90% of it's just because it's boring. Although Yaz's mum was nice. So I gave it 2 out of 10 as well.
How are we always all getting the same scores?
No way.
I give it a 2 as well.
Cruelty, justice for arachnids, cruelty to spiders. What is happening? What is
Oh
happening?
yeah, the cruelty to spiders is wrong. Spiders are an important part of our ecosystem, but also yes, this episode is hot garbage. As I explained to George and Connor and the listeners, I gave it a 2 purely because I gave it 1 bonus point for the fact that I actually find it entertaining for how shit it is.
I don't even think I can say that. I was just bored for most of it, but yeah. As for the Saranga conundrum is where we're going to differ because I actually don't mind the Saranga.
Oh,
Yes!
no, leave the chat, I'm going. I'm going.
Mike is on my side.
Bye.
I think don't get me wrong, it's not like the greatest thing or anything, but it's slightly above average for me. It's fine. I liked that it took some swings. It's kind of cool future spaceship type story.
Yeah, like I had the opinion that Andy did that it got a bonus point because I actually just was like, this is shit and I'm enjoying it.
This is shit and I'm not enjoying it, so therefore for me arguably the worst. Just every time I think of that episode, I want to literally throw up and gag. I hate the episode. There's not one thing I like. I hate all of it.
I really like the part about the woman who has to sort of pilot the ship and everything and get her confidence. It's cool. It's not bad.
It's dragging the fucking script. Get on with things. Get a move on, Slowpoke.
I like it. I give it a 6 out of 10. I know I'll be the only one that probably gives
That
it
is a fucking generous.
I'd have probably given it a 5.
A 1.
I can watch it and enjoy it.
Oh, I also gave it a 1. I hate this
Oh.
episode so much.
Guys.
This is the reason why Series 11 was bad in my. It's like there are a solid 4 episodes that I just think are absolute trash, and that never usually happens. Usually, there's only maybe 1 episode per series that I think, oh yeah, that was quite bad. But in this series,
I don't know,
4 of them.
Series 10 was in real danger there for a while because I don't like any of that stupid Monk trilogy.
Oh my god, honestly, there's a whole other video where we can do the Capaldi era, but the Monk trilogy fell off
absolutely.
a cliff.
I'm going to say this a lot in this recording. I am going to die on the hill that I think the Monk trilogy was great.
Sure.
I don't remember it being that bad.
Don't-
I'm on
don't
your
get me
side,
wrong,
Andy.
Lie of the Land is not good, but I think Extremis and Pyramid at the End of the World are great. I really like those two.
Oh, well, it seems like that's all we've got time for this week.
I'm kind of running a bit.
Series 10 is my second favorite series, though, so I'm always gonna kind of bat for it. So yeah.
But unfortunately, we are on Series 11, and it's time for only the 6th episode that we've talked about, Demons of the Punjab. Thank God this era gets shorter because we'll actually get it done. Demons of the Punjab.
I'll give you my quick thoughts on Demons of the Punjab. I really love it. I can understand the criticism that people level at it, that it should have been a pure historical, but I actually really like the Thajarians. I like the twist that they were harmless and they were kind of just ambulance chasers in a way. They were there to watch somebody die. And this was kind of your equivalent of Rosa, George, in that I knew nothing about partition or anything, so it kind of taught me and prompted me to go and look into these things. But I also think it's the best acting that any of mainly because I really like Mandip and Yaz, but I think it's the best acting in the season in Series 11, and it has some of Jodie's best moments. And I ultimately just respond to the fact that it's all about kind of love and the power of that and family and all of those nice things. So I gave it 10 out of 10.
No, yeah, it was a story that on initial viewing I didn't gel with as much because it kind of felt like trying to do a similar thing to. It felt like Rosa and this were very like, we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to have an alien element in a historical that's otherwise very interesting. And I just didn't gel with this as much. But on rewatch, like I really do love it. It's probably up there with. Like it's above Rosa for me, but like it's up there with like that kind of level. It's in the top 10, maybe top 5, like some of the best of this era. It's the most effective Yaz is for this whole year.
Yep.
I really like that, and I kind of feel like this could have in a different series. Like if this had been in Flux, had Dan not been there, like this is more of a like. This is a pure Yaz thing, but it's like, oh, we've also got to give Graham and Brian.
Graham and Brian.
We have to give. It's their shipping name.
There is a multiverse out there.
We have to give Ryan and Graham something to do. But also, it was nice, just like even like the bits with, like sort of like the hen do, so to speak, in loose terms, like when the doctor's getting her henna tattooed and like, oh, never done this when I was a man. Like I will die on this hill, Andy, that there is some great dialogue buried in this fucking exposition. Like there is some nice character moments, like and stuff like that. I'm like, this is what the show should have been in this time round. But it's lost under a load of, we have to tell the audience exactly what we're looking at. Like, oh, I'm not driving this car. Well, we know that, Doctor, because we can see that the car's shooting a laser at you.
Connor, what are your thoughts before I get into mine for this episode?
Demons of Punjab. This is when Yaz gets a character, and I don't know, if from this point onwards, the focus in my eyes goes apart from post Series 11. This is when the focus goes away from Graham and Ryan, and this is when the Yaz and the Doctor cycle, if you want to call it that, because I wouldn't call their thing a relationship, quote unquote, but their cycle does kind of begin in this, and throughout Series 11 there is like faint
hints,
glimmers, perhaps, but even like back in Arachnids when like Yaz's mum, I was gonna call her Jazz. Yaz's mum says to her like, "Oh, you and Ryan are thing." Like, "No, we're mates." And then she's like, "Are you and the Doctor seeing each other?" Like, it was planted in Series 11, and perhaps we didn't initially pick up on that, and the community didn't pick up on that in Series 11. But this, I don't know. This is when Yaz gets character. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I'll agree, and I will say it again in sort of watching it back in hindsight. I do now notice that, yes, there were hints that the Doctor and Yaz were potentially going to have some sort of a thing. I will still complain that they waited far too late.
Yes. Oh, yeah, 100%. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And I think, again, I just want to make it clear to the people who listen, is that, like, a lot of my criticisms that are going to come out of the Doctor Yaz thing are coming from the fact that I am a queer person myself. I want that to be made clear because I don't want it to come across as me just being annoyed that two women have got, are showing feelings for each other on screen, because that is not it at all. I just don't like how a lot of it was handled.
Yeah, I think we could all probably pretty much agree on that.
Unanimously.
As for Demons, I'm probably going to be the controversial one here. I don't dislike it. I like what it was going for. And I think you're right in the fact that there's some really nice dialogue. I, again, really like the line about, never did this when I was a man, and I like... what is the joke she said after that, where she's like, oh, don't mind me, and any of my quotes about gender and...
My quotes about gender and bodily regeneration are all in jest. I'm such a joker.
That's such a good line. I genuinely really like that line. Jodie's really good in this episode, as is Mandit. I just find the episode really boring. I'm so sorry.
I can see that because I was there. Like that's how I did feel about it. It did feel very.
Even on rewatches, it just, even though I like what it is going for and I see what it's trying to do and I respect it and I appreciate it, I just don't find it fun to watch. Not because I don't like learning about this, because it is interesting. It just, as someone with suspected ADHD, it really struggles to keep my attention. This is one of the episodes where I just cannot focus on it because I'm just so my mind just wanders because it doesn't grip me, and that heavily weighs it down for me because it just bores me, and I'm really sorry.
I understand where you're coming from, but I think that's why it's one of my favorites of the era, is because this era is so ADHD and scatty and running all over the place most of the time, not stopping to breathe, that I actually like that this is quite a sort of almost artsy-fartsy, like we're just going to stop and it's going to be a slow exploration of the nature of love and the history of everything that happened. And I think that whole sometimes, what is it? Love in all its forms is the most powerful weapon we have, because love is a form of hope, and like hope, love abides. It's one of my all-time favorite Doctor speeches, and it's from my worst series, so I have to rate Demons.
Take away the sci-fi demon monster jab, and if this is the closest to it feeling like an indie family drama set in the partition. It does just feel like an independent movie as opposed to a sci-fi episode with monsters that don't turn out to be the actual villains, and really it's humans and how, two opinions can create conflict and how we as people deal with it and grief and opinions clash. But to me, this episode feels mostly like an indie movie, like an indie family drama. Take away the sci-fi elements.
I really like Yasmin's nan as well. I do think she's really nice. I like the sort of lovely moments between them. They are nice. I do like those. But yeah, I give Demons. Sorry, go on, just while I get my thing up.
I kind of like that it's a throwback to some of the earlier Doctor Who's that are quite popular. So if you look at like Marco Polo or Reign of Terror, stuff like that, which I know they are pure historicals, but this virtually is, and I think it has that vibe for me.
I think the only thing is the alien element. It is the fact that, because they're not the ones that kill Preem, like it's his brother and all that stuff. Like it felt like a lot of this era it's a villain, but it's a misunderstood, like grey area villain. Like there's a lot of that in a lot of these episodes. That's kind of like, oh, they didn't mean bad by this. It was just a thing that was, misunderstanding, and like that's the kind of. Sometimes you just want, like, to either just let it just be a pure historical or have a proper boo hiss, like pantomime-esque villain, if you will. Which is maybe why I liked Rosa a lot more, because it was kind of here's the person that you hate. Here's the reason why you have to like this person that the Doctor's trying to save, kind of thing. It could be down to that, but I really did love Demons of the Punjab second time round, and I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10.
I gave it a 6, but again, it's not because I dislike it. It's just because I find it hard to get through without getting extremely distracted and bored. But for what it's going for, and I know it's telling an important story, I can't give it anything less than that.
Andy, out of curiosity, have you watched Ms. Marvel?
No.
Because that's telling the same story, but that really did bore me stupid.
See, the only reason I was tempted to watch Miss Marvel is because Anjali Bhamani is in it, and she voices Symmetra, who is my main in Overwatch, and I love her. So I was tempted to watch it just because of her, but then I heard it was really bad, and I was like, oh, do I? Yeah. Has anyone got anything else they want to say on Demons, or can we get on to Kablam?
We can get on to Kablam. Yeah. Connor, you're
I'm tempted on this. So I want to give it an 8 because of the story and because of its message, but then literally due to the attention span, and it doesn't have, oh, my eyes are glued to the screen, because it is kind of unfortunately slow in its storytelling. I feel like I should give it a 7.5 just to keep the ranking a bit different, but I do appreciate the message more than the fact that I can't keep attention to it, because I think we've all unanimously agreed it's a great story, but we can't keep our attention on it. It's slow in the way it's telling.
We didn't all agree with that. I give it 10 out of 10.
Yeah, Mike loved it.
Fuck it, 8.
Which is fair. That's the first 10 out of 10 of the era then. Mike gave Demons of the Punjab a 10 out of 10. That's the first one for the era. That's cool.
Yes.
Okay.
And now for Kablam, the second 10 out of 10 of the year.
I mean, I think I've said this before, and I'm gonna say this a lot. I'm gonna die on this hill. I think Kablam is phenomenal. It is far and away my favorite episode of this series. I love Kablam. Don't get me wrong, I docked at a point because the end message kind of ended up being capitalism is good, which it's not. Yeah. So I docked at a point for that, but apart from that, I think Kablam is really fucking good.
Yeah, I had a lot more to enjoy out of it this time around. I think the use of Lee Mack in it as well was kind of like, oh, that was well done. Ryan had definitely. Ryan had relevance because it was like, oh, this is what I used to do, kind of thing. It's like my job. And then I love the jokes about when Jodie switches from being maintenance and like Graham has to do it. I like that kind of interplay. I like what's her name? Julie.
Kira,
What's her face?
Julie
Hesmondhalgh.
Hesmondhalgh.
Yeah, I think she's great. Like that whole thing of like it gives you a sense of the world. Like, oh, we're a proud 10%, company and stuff like that. And
She's
Yeah.
just a good actress. I like her in everything she's in. I think she's really good.
yeah, she is amazing. And I think that like you said, the whole capitalism thing is like that loses it somewhat, and the over dramatic weird love story angle and the explosive bubble wrapper kind of like a bit too pantomime in the way it is. But I
I was going to say the same thing. I didn't mind the bubble wrap.
It's reminiscent of Moffat trying to make a normal thing scary, and it's a valiant attempt, I think, isn't it?
I quite like it. I think the moment this episode won me over, because I didn't expect it at all, was when it killed Kira. When the AI basically has Kira killed. Really, I love that. I think because I did not expect it, and I quite like dark stuff anyway.
I just think it's so tonally jarring in this episode, though, because this episode isn't really like that for most of it. So it's kind of like it's such whiplash.
It works for me because it establishes as soon as it establishes that the system is the thing calling out for help, but because it isn't getting it, it kind of takes things into its own hands. Because it establishes that, I'm perfectly happy with it because it completely took me aback when it did it, but I kind of loved it because I didn't expect from what we'd had from like the first 6 episodes. I didn't expect a character to just get brutally killed off like that in this era. So when it happened, I was like, oh, okay, we're going there now. And like, for some reason, that really works for me. But I think the plot's really good for this one, apart from the capitalism is bad angle. Because at the end of the day, I think the villain's motivation is actually kind of justified. Like the whole, I think obviously he's gone about it the wrong way. You shouldn't be blowing up all of these customers, but at the same time, his motivations are, I think, kind of valid.
No, I'm with you. I think that's what makes better villains, is if you can kind of see their point. And I think that's why I don't like Rosa as much, because that guy is just pure out and out. This guy's a demon. There's nothing likable about him. He's not got any purpose or point other than I am bad. But yeah, I like it better when people like I've just finished raving on my other channel about Black Panther Wakanda Forever because I love Namor because he's not a villain and you can completely understand where he's coming from. So yeah, I'm with that.
Yeah, I think Charlie really works as a villain. I can see where he's coming from. I love that I really like how the red herrings are done in this as well, because at first you think like Julie Hesmondhalgh seems a bit iffy, and then it quite clearly is made clear that she's not. Then it's made, I can't remember his name, but the big boss guy, you think he's a bit iffy, and then it finds out he's doing exactly the same thing. He's just trying to figure out what's going on. Then the reveal that it's the AI crying out for help, I love that. And it works perfectly with what happens at the start of the episode, because the big question is, how did this message get out of packing if it shouldn't have been able to happen? And then you find out, oh, it's because it was the AI itself, and that really works for me. Literally everything about this episode honestly works perfectly for me, apart from the very end where capitalism is good. That's the only reason, that's the only criticism I have in this episode, so I give it a 9. Honestly, I love Kablam. This was, sorry, I will stop in a moment. This is the episode that finally made me click with this era in some capacity. It took because Wonder of Ellsworth was good, and then the rest of them had some reason for me to be like, I'm not really enjoying this. And then Kablam happened, and I was like, right, that was Doctor Who. That was what I was waiting for. So yeah, I love Kablam. I will let everyone else talk now. I will shut up. I'm sorry.
No, that's fair enough. That's what you hear.
We've reviewed this already on a different channel, so people can look there for a more in detailed thoughts. I will say I don't think the message is supposed to be capitalism is good, really. And I don't think, knowing Pete McTighe, that's what he would have written. But I do think that it's really muddled, the message at the end of it, because I think what it's supposed to be is that, these systems are complicated and there's no easy answers. But unfortunately, it does kind of come off, and I understand people that did come away thinking it is saying, like, well, the capitalist system is the best we've got, so shut up and deal with it, But so it loses a point or two there. I also think some of the acting is a little bit, so it's like I don't love the actress that plays Kira. I think she's a little bit too soap opera-ish. No offense to soaps. She's a bit Rent-A-Ghost for me at times. But it is good. I think it's one of the first times the entire ensemble gets something to do. And yeah, I also docket points for wasting Lee Mack because I really liked him and I was waiting for him to be in the entire episode and he got killed off way too soon. So I gave Kablam a 7 out of 10.
I think that's fair enough. I would have given it an 8 because I really did enjoy it. Like, I connected it a lot. Hello. Sorry. Yeah, I would say that I would give it an 8 out of 10 because I really did enjoy it. Second time round, it's a lot of fun, and obviously the ending a bit, but yeah, a solid 8 for me. I think in terms of this episode.
8.5. Literally, the actress that plays Kira and the ending. Aside from that, I just think it's a very entertaining, amusing episode. The robots, I'm not trying to compare them to RTD and the Clockwork ones, but it's just something about their face that just gives me nightmares.
They are creepy. They are very creepy.
It's the Kablam man.
I was gonna say, I never even mentioned that. I love the excitement in 13 Space when she's like, "Oh, it's the Kablam man!" Like, I love that. Yeah. That bit at the start's so fun. What was
our first callback to a previous regeneration where the Fez.
Yeah.
I must have ordered this ages ago.
I think the reference to being a white-haired Scotsman half an hour ago was probably the first, but okay.
Oh yeah, true. But like in terms of a thing of like, you know, oh, this is
a physical prop.
Here's a reminder of what the show was. Here's a Fez because that's
the episode's really really busy with that because doesn't she also make a reference to Unicorn and the Wasp?
Yeah, she did. When they're getting in the cupboard, she said, "Did I ever tell you about the time I met Agatha Christie?" All stuff. Yeah, she mentions that. Yeah. The other thing I was going to say that I completely forgot to mention, it's just a quick one. They finally use Yaz's police training in this one. It's the only other time it gets mentioned in this series. But yes, she actually does police stuff in this one.
Oh, my other super brief criticism as well, the actual special effects when they're on that
the conveyor belt.
The conveyor belt.
Absolutely terrible.
That is terrible.
Yeah, laughing.
But apart from that, it looks great. Sheer cinema.
I love Kablam. Easily my best episode of the series. One of my favourite episodes of the era. Genuinely, I love this episode.
Well, as long as I've got my calculations right, now we move on to real pure cinema, which is Alan Cummings' performance in The Witchfinders.
Yes, he's so good.
I will go out on a limb and say I fucking love this episode so much.
Yes,
and it is 99% of it is down to Alan Cummings.
This is my Kablam. This is my favorite episode of the season.
I don't think it's like brilliant, but the thing is, I feel like I'm quite good at separating what I think is objectively good and what I personally enjoy. Objectively, I think this episode is like, it's good. It's like a 7. That's what I've given it. For my personal enjoyment, I love it. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. The Morax is a bit. It's the monsters hit and miss, but this episode gets. I think this episode gets a lot right. Mainly Alan Cumming. Alan Cumming was just such a good casting grab. He's so good.
Yep.
I would say best guest star of the entire, maybe the entire Jodie era, but like if you don't count Jo Martin because she's probably more of a recurring
role at this point. Yeah,
I would say that Alan Cumming was fucking phenomenal as James the. It's such he's. You can, like, he knows what he's doing. Like, he knows what he's in. He's like, I'm here to play this over-the-top witch-believing monarch, and I'm going to do that with every single... Like, I'm going to chew the hell out of this scenery. With every action, look, and breath, I'm going to just exude, like, just pure charisma, and it's just fabulous.
Charisma.
He is the Matt Berry of this episode, and it's fucking amazing.
Absolutely. And the thing is, even if he wasn't in it, I still think I'd like this episode. I do still think it'd be good. But he just elevates it to something else. It's so good.
And I like the whole interplay of, like, it's including Rosa, but like more so in this, if I wasn't a woman, I wouldn't have to put up with this kind of stuff. Her getting accused of being a witch. I think that it's one of the only times that Yaz shows a bit of initiative, and she's like, "Oh, that girl just lost her nan. I'm going to go see if she's okay." And that's a genuine reason to split up instead of the plot needs to go on, so I must go over here and the doctor must go over there. I I
I
like
think
that.
it's one of the few times I actually quite like Ryan. Like his story with Alan Cumming is pretty
Yeah,
decent.
I was going to say the same.
I love that we're
like
just
their
calling him Alan
dynamic.
Cumming and not by his character name. I just love that.
I love that. Alan Cumming just spends the entire episode essentially flirting with Ryan. Like,
exactly.
I'm here for this.
One of my favourite bits is on the way back to the TARDIS after he burns it. He burns the Morax. They're like, Ryan, why does she not speak to me? I fear I may have angered her. Oh, sorry, mate, I can't help you with that. That's one of the best bits of dialogue.
This episode deserves all of the praise just for Alan Cumming alone. I think that's what we're getting at here.
Let me just say I love the episode anyway. I think the Morax is probably my favorite Chibnall created new villain. I really liked it. It had good motivation. I think it was really well done, and I think her name is Siobhan Finneman, is a really good actress. So she did a good job in and out of the prosthetic.
Does she play? I can't remember the character's name. Is she
From Benidorm.
Is she like the head?
It's the main Morax, basically. Yeah.
I thought I liked her. I thought her performance was really good.
Yeah, I think she's one of the better
CGI a
villains
bit.
Yeah, but I love the way that the story was told. I love that it actually used the Doctor's gender as part of the story for the first time, because obviously Witch it makes sense. And I like that it went there and sort of went into the repercussions of that. But ultimately, the thing that puts it over the edge for me, and you'll appreciate this, George, is that, like, yes, I'm going to give 10 out of 10 to the Ark in Space, but I'm also going to give 10 out of 10 for very different reasons to the Horns of Nimon. This is the Horns of Nimon, where it would be crap, but that one performance just makes it glorious. So I did actually go for 10 out of 10.
I gave it a 9 just because there was, like, obviously, the alien itself is not the strongest element of the story. The more compelling is the whole witch hunt and the Doctor being wrapped up within that and trying to sort of, it's like Midnight in terms of the fact that she's, against the wall. She's got people that essentially want her dead, and she's kind of got to, prove her way out of that. And it's one of her strongest performances, I think, of the show as well. And I think she plays off against the stereotype very well, and I think it's well done. And obviously Alan Cumming, so 9 out of 10 for me. Very close to a 10.
Definitely. I think it's quite telling that this is a female writer, so I think that's the first time that we get the female perspective of the Doctor, and I think Joy Wilkinson is a really good writer. I wish she'd done more.
Was this her only episode?
I think it may have been. I'll have to double check.
That is a shame. These are like the kind of writers that we want more of. Like, was it Vinay Patel that did?
Vinay Patel did a couple. He did Fugitive of the Jadun as well.
You did June and Dreamers of the Punjab. Yeah, like he was like a nice new voice in this era, and even I feel like we didn't get enough of him. It would have been nice for him to be in Flux or something, or like maybe have done one of the specials. But c'est la vie, we shall get to that.
Yeah, this is the only episode of Doctor Who she's wrote. I've just checked.
She did write the Target novelization of the Witchfinders as well, though.
That's one of the ones I am looking to pick up because as we can tell, we all the general consensus is we love the Witchfinders.
It's a good episode. Yeah.
Shall we move on to the prosthetic frog, or is that next?
Oh,
is that next? Is it? It takes you away next.
Yeah. It is. It
Yeah,
takes you away
takes you
next.
away.
Can I just start off by saying this has this isn't great, but there's a nice interplay at the beginning where she's eating the soil to find out where they are. And I really like that interaction, and just when Ryan's like, no, I'm good, thanks, when she offers him some.
Yeah, also the line about, and there's a sheep farm, a few miles away, I can't remember what it is, it says something about a sheep farm.
Talks about the sheep revolution and stuff as well.
Yeah, the sheep revolution as well, yeah. I don't know if I said I gave Witchfinders a 7, just because it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it is thoroughly enjoyable and a lot of fun. It's one of the episodes of this era I've rewatched the most. I just think it's so fun. So yeah, I give it a 7. Thoroughly enjoyable. It takes you away.
Connor, did you give yours? Sorry, Andy.
Yeah. 7.5. I'm going to be the controversial one. Alan Cummings is probably third. I like the story and I like the villain more than Alan Cumming.
Wow.
Yeah,
death
get
to
that
Connor.
out of the way. Death to me.
It's alright to be wrong sometimes.
Witches. I'm into witches, not the guys with twirly moustaches. What can I say?
Witches, not bitches.
Witches, not bitches.
Whereas Alan Cummings' character was very much the opposite. He wanted all the bitches.
He did. The main one being Ryan. And
eating soil.
let's talk about an abusive father not really looking after his daughter.
Let's talk about the Grace Frog. Yay!
I mean, jumping ahead to the frog. It would have been better had the mouth not moved and it was just telepathically saying these things, or if the frog was CGI. Like that.
Or if they just didn't use a fucking frog.
Yeah, or if they just used Sharon D. Clarke, that would have been fine. But
What?
I'll tell you. Sorry, my
I was gonna say,
overriding.
why didn't they use Sharon D. Clarke?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, my overriding issue with this episode is that I was thoroughly convinced all the way through that it was going to end up to be Omega, and that's what it fits every last part of the story. And I was like, "Ooh, the big reveal's coming," Pocket Universe and everything, and then it was a fucking frog.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, I just made friends with this conscious universe. Anyway, off we go. Next episode. It was very much like, Adric's dead. Well, he wouldn't want us to mourn. Let's move on.
We played the credits in silence. That's enough.
The thing is, I appreciate. I was thinking about how I was going to talk about this episode coming up to recording, and the way that I described it, because I don't think I hate it as much as other people do, is
oh no, I don't either.
For lack of better words, for how bland a lot of this series is, for how going through the motions a lot of it is, I appreciated that they tried to do something, what at least from my opinion, was genuinely quite unique with this episode. I really liked what they were trying to do. I just don't think it landed a lot of the time. But I appreciate what they were trying to do enough to give it at least an okay score.
Yeah, I can completely agree with you on that one. Like, it's trying to do something interesting, but it's not really delivering in terms of the way like it's coming across on the screen. Like the void stuff in between's interesting. Like Ribbons, I think was okay. Like the whole motivation of the dad obviously is a what if storyline. Like it's a parallel universe where his wife's still alive, and that's why he's locking his daughter in a house even though she's blind. Like
it loses points for the dad.
Yeah, I think there's some weird. I mean, I know we said about dialogue, but there's some weird dialogue where, like, when they first find out that she's blind, it's like the way the doctor's talking to her, like asking her really weird questions, and it's like, I'm blind, and it's like, oh, okay, we're just gonna fucking hit you over the head with that and just be less.
I appreciate that they casted a blind actor for it, though. I appreciate they actually did cast someone who was blind to play the part.
Yeah.
No, that is a definite plus of it, but there's just some I like Ryan in this as well, like how his backstory is like, well, obviously, like, a dad's done a runner, like, he's like, which he kind of is right, like, he's fucked off to another universe to be with their mum, but, it's the fact that plays off of his own character backstory of, like, how his dad let him down, like, let him and his nan down, so it makes sense.
I really want to see that episode of Jerry Springer with just the little chevron at the end going, my dad fucked off to be with my dead mum in a parallel universe.
That turned out to be a frog.
Turned out to be a frog.
My dad left me blind and alone in my house to be with a frog who could potentially be my mum.
Well, we've actually got the frog here, right?
We've got the frog here with us today! And he just hops in!
Get the frog! Get the frog! And the frog's like swearing, but it's being bleeped out.
Oh!
No, fuck you, I was there for you and your wife wasn't. Blah, blah, blah.
It turns out, Frog, you are the mother!
Oh, honestly. Maybe we found the actual title. Maybe.
Frog, you were the mother all along.
Oh, this is the most I've enjoyed the frog.
I think, on the whole, it's probably like a 6 out of 10 for me. Like, it's good, like, it's got interesting stuff. I think that this really sort of perfectly rounds off the Grace Graham, like, the story that we've had since episode 1. It kind of gets undone a bit by what's to come, but we're, like, in terms of just having that arc from episode 1 to episode 9 and having him call him Grandad at the end, it was kind of like this is symbolic in their character history journey, and their relationship. From now on, they are like seeing each other as family, and
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah. Sorry. Go
Who's next? Connor?
Fuck it.
Sorry.
6.5. I think it challenges the viewer, and I guess this episode got a bit of backlash from that, and maybe people wanted a bit of more storyline and more like, oh, what the fuck's happening every week? Why am I watching an episode about a fucking frog at the end? I think that's what everyone's initial reactions was. It does it interestingly, and it challenges the viewer, especially from the lack of reward at the end. But it doesn't deliver on all of its merits, but it absolutely does cap off the arc somewhat with Ryan and Graham, and them being called family does end the episode on a really big high going into the rest of the show.
Yep.
So, yeah. Solid episode enough.
Okay. So what score did you give it, Connor?
6.5. 6.5.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I didn't love the episode, but I think on a rewatch it was divorced from the expectation because I expected a lot. But then again, part of that was that I read like an advanced review and somebody was like, a really big important moment happens at the end of the episode, and I was expecting something sci-fi and geeky, and it was actually not that it's not important, but it was actually like Ryan calling Graham granddad. And I was like, I appreciate it more now that you're not like selling it like this is such a huge moment, whatever. But
I mean, we're gonna get back to that fucking over an episode in series 12, aren't we?
Well,
yes. So, Andy, did you give your score?
I gave it a 5, which I'm now feeling might be a little bit low, but I think I'm going to stick by it because I liked what it was trying to do quite a lot, and I can find it quite enjoyable to watch, but I think there's still quite a lot of issues with it where it kind of misses on, like, I think it's very 50-50. It kind of misses half of what it's trying to do, but I also enjoy it. So, I'll give it a 5. I'll go straight down the middle.
Okay. I think I still think it was a miss in what it was trying to do, but I appreciate it. I did like, this is probably going to date me and I'll be the only person that gets the reference, but I like that it featured the actor Kevin Eldon in Doctor Who finally. Something for the Richard Herring and Stuart Lee fans. So, but I thought Ribbons was a good, decent villain, and it was fine-ish, but I went 4 out of 10 because I didn't really like it.
That's fair enough. I think we can all agree that this will probably rank better than the next episode.
What was your score? You didn't give your score, George.
No, I did. I gave it a 6.
Okay.
Like, I think it was, it was above average. It was, like you say, it was like a lot of interesting stuff to say, but it just didn't land on all of what it tried to deliver. But on the whole, really did enjoy it. But
bonus points for the Grace Frog. Yeah.
Yes, should have not moved her mouth though, and I even like how, in terms of in camera, when they go through the mirror, everything's flipped, even Jodie's hair's the other way around.
Yes, that's really cool. I forgot. I really like the moment where Jodie, or where the Doctor, when she encounters the Solitrack properly for the first time, when she says, "I can't." It's something along the lines of after all this time, I'm still finding something new, or something like. It's just a moment where she sort of is really enjoying the moment of discovering something. Yeah, it's just a really nice moment for the Doctor. But anyway, the Battle of Rancid Ass Kellogg's.
The Battle of Rancid Acid Bath. It's not a great story, is it?
Rancid.
I will go ahead and say right off the bat that I forgot this one as I was watching it again. Pearl Tracky, sure, that's his name. Chibnall's got this thing, in terms of his scale, it's always there's got to be a set number of things. There's 7 distress signals coming from this one planet. There's all these things happening at once in this thing. Why? Why has there got to be 7 distress signals from these weird god creatures on this quarry? But
with teeth in their face.
Yeah, I don't know. We get payoff for Tim Shaw. Sort of. Yeah.
A retcon? No, an undoing.
That is one of the few moments I like, is that I actually love that Graham was don't tell the Doctor she'll be livid or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that felt sort of they'd come to terms with Grace's death, and it's immediately I'm going to kill this thing, which I know it's because they weren't face to face with them last week, but it kind of felt a bit sort of unearned, in the way it was oh, now I'm going to do this, but also the punishment for Tim Shaw anyway was worse than death, being held in stasis, being conscious,
See, I like that though, because that's reminiscent of Family of Blood. Like that's what the Doctor would do. Like Tennant does the same exact thing.
Yeah, but when the Doctor does it, like the Doctor didn't want to do that, but they've kind of, in
I
that
Tim
version.
Shaw's kind of proven himself equally irredeemable to me.
Yeah, but like in that, Tennant is like didn't want to do that. That's why he hid, was to avoid doing that kind of thing. But Graham kind of gets applauded for like, well done, Graham. You locked the evil tooth man in a fridge.
I guess, but I just prefer that. I like that he didn't kind of give into the darkness, especially in an episode where my biggest issue is that the Doctor is so morally fucking inconsistent that at one point she's like, "I never carry weapons and hurt people, except when I do." It's quite like vague, actually.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't point out how shit you are at writing, Chibnall.
This fucking episode. I'm right. This is the worst episode of the era for me. Like, it's just so bad.
Certainly down
like,
there for me.
I think the thing is as well.
Second worst for me.
I've said this before on Twitter. This episode, don't get me wrong, it's a bad episode no matter what, in my opinion. But I think what makes it worse is that it's the fucking series finale.
Yes.
Yeah, easily the worst of the modern era.
The fact that it is the finale and it is this bad is what makes it so awful. Because if this had just been like a mid-series episode, it had been whatever. But it's the fact that this... Sorry.
No, imagine if the finale had been Resolution. That would have been such a better way to end it.
I feel that's why I kind of include Resolution in this, because it does feel like the correct finale to this run of stories.
Yes.
But it's so forgettable. Like, you've got Mark Addy is wasted in this, and probably like he looks like he's drunk anyway. You've got like, it's just, what was the point of that? Those really lenient godlike people, like, oh yeah, we'll just believe at face value that this guy is our creator. Like,
also, like, this, it feels like Chibnall just literally ripped a page straight out of The Stolen Earth, because that's literally what Tim Shaw's doing. Yeah, he's literally like, oh, I need all of these planets so I can power this thing. I can't remember what the fuck it does because this episode is so forgettable, and it's just, this is the worst episode of New Who, in my opinion.
It's quite telling that the very best part of the episode is literally the last minute. I love that last minute about the whole like travel. Hopefully the universe will surprise you. But I don't want to sit through the rest of the episode to get to that.
Yeah.
It just, I think one of the things that really soured my opinion on this episode, which was bad anyway, is just the fact that it's like, let's be honest, at least in my opinion, we went through the weakest episode of the weakest series of New Who overall, at least for me, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Went through the weakest series of New Who, and it culminated in this pile of dog shit, which made a lot of the journey beforehand feel
wasted.
Like just wasted. Exactly, yeah. Like, literally, apart from Kablam and the Witchfinders and The Woman Who Fell to Earth, which I have happily rewatched many times, yeah. There's
one of those.
That episode. Yeah.
I think.
Anyway,
should we just
2
move
out of
on
10,
to Resolution? 2 out of 10.
Does it even deserve a score? No, you've given.
I give it a 1. Can I give it a 0? Is that possible?
Yes.
You can give it whatever you want, mate.
It's an conundrum. That's a fucking 0.
I think this is worse. I think this is worse than Saranga Conundrum.
Definitely. This is, I think, at present, this is my second worst episode of the era.
Yeah.
It's my second worst as well, as you know.
Yeah, it's my least favorite episode of the entire fucking show. So yeah, it's just so bad. And like right, if I may just rant about one more thing, the title of the episode is literally, it's a battle that we don't even get to see. Like, we don't see any of what the title is alluding to, and the whole episode feels like a cop out, and it's just so bad.
Do you feel like you missed the Battle of Ravioli, Alfredo?
Maybe, yeah. But it's just a fight in Pizza Express at this point. which like, we've got to be careful because Prince Andrew will come running.
But he won't sweat about it when he does.
Sweat. No, we won't break a sweat.
No.
Yeah.
Hasn't got his mum to defend him anymore. Anyway.
William, hello.
You okay?
What we've just finished Battle of Ranskoor. What's your score?
Of Battle of Ranskoor?
Yeah.
Oh bloody hell! Oh, I haven't thought about this episode in a long time. 2 out of 10.
Yeah, same as me.
Yep.
Yeah,
General
out of the
consensus, that is correct.
It's absolute garbage.
But Will, you are here just in time to give us your thoughts on Resolution.
Oh, I know he hates this one. No.
Yeah, I was
Really?
gonna say,
What's wrong with Resolution?
Let the people in the court speak.
Decorum.
oh, for the love of God. Okay, so I just think it doesn't get off to the best start. I don't like any of the side characters. I think their story is really cliche and playgrounds like. It's like, that kiss or that drink. Yeah, it was that kiss at the New Year's party or something. Are we going to talk about that? And it's like, this is like it's written by a child. But here, I'm not being disrespectful to Chris Chibnall or whatever. It's just, I hear the side characters from the off. I thought they had absolutely no depth. And yeah, I don't think Yaz had nothing to do in Resolution at all. You cannot name one thing she did in that episode. All she did that I can note when I rewatched it recently, about 3 months ago, was that she was kind of like a police officer when she asked them for their names and their address, and then for the rest of the episode, she did nothing except from ask questions. That was all she did, and I was like, no.
But that's what Yaz does. Yaz is the question guy.
Especially at this point, yeah.
Okay, try and name 3 meaningful interactions between Yaz and the Doctor throughout the era. Name me 3 scenes. I can name 3 scenes from Amy and the Doctor in the 11th hour alone. Can you name 3 meaningful moments between the pair?
I mean, we've probably done 3 in this series that we've done, but
I mean, okay. Well, I mean,
I can't remember them off the top of my head, but
yeah, neither can I. That's my point. I hate Resolution. That is my least favorite of the Dalek trilogy. If you want to call it
Blimey.
Well, Mike, come in and defend Resolution if that is what you are here to do.
Well, I really like Resolution.
It's my favourite Dalek special.
Yeah, mine as well.
Middle place for me of the Dalek specials, but I like it. I think it was the first time that this was the one where I was like, oh, finally, this is an era that doesn't just feel like it's a disaster, and she finally feels like the Doctor. And I think it was the start of Chibnall being able to write returning villains much better than he is at creating new ones. Because I actually thought the Dalek possessing Lynn was really quite scary and effective.
That was really
It is really good.
Body horror element done right.
And something new with the Daleks.
Exactly. It was a nice new twist, and I kind of like the new recon Dalek design, and the fact that, even though it's implausible, the fact that it basically knocked it up out of scrap was pretty cool. I even like the joke that everybody hates about we're gonna have a conversation. I think that's funny.
I thought the reaction to that was so overblown. I thought it was quite funny.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you.
It's okay. It's not like.
I mean, I'm not rolling around on the floor, but I'm not like I'm gonna make a 5-hour video about why this line is terrible.
Oh,
You know.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing that's happened on a Doctor Who set.
No, exactly.
No, we just talked about the Battle of Ranskow Kolos.
I kind of I like most of the episode. I just think they could have handled the Ryan and his dad stuff a little bit better.
No, I really like that scene in the cafe. I really do.
Yeah.
That interaction, I think, is some of the only good stuff that Tosin Cole does.
Yeah.
That's fine, but I'm talking about like the end when his dad gets possessed in the TARDIS, and then it's kind of like, I know Will has an issue with it, and I kind of see his point with the whole microwave like resolution to defeat the Dalek is a bit iffy.
And an oven.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not too much of a problem. At least it had some sort of connection. Like, this microwave is just here, so have it, have some purpose.
Yeah.
But I thought the ending of Resolution was excellent, because I thought Ryan's dad was going to die. So to have, Ryan have that moment where he goes to save his dad and then eventually do, I think, okay, maybe he could have died, and that could have been, like, the music was so, it kind of built up to the death, and then all of a sudden, no, the door's closed, and I thought, okay, maybe I missed the opportunity to have Ryan be killed off here, and I don't think we would have lost much for series 12. Let's be honest.
But that basketball shot.
Exactly, that was his arc in series 12, a basketball shot. But let's be honest, if he was killed off there, I thought that would have been one of the best companion exits, because that scene was. Yeah.
Before you got here, Will, we all said that we would have preferred if he died instead of Grace in episode 1. Like, that would have been
absolutely. I think Grace and Bradley had such a fantastic dynamic, and off the Doctor as well.
I like how you just call
I
him
think that could
Bradley
be
and not
very
Graham. It's not Graham, it's just Bradley Walsh.
Here's the thing.
Alan Cumming is Alan Cumming. Bradley Walsh is Bradley Walsh.
Bradley
Everyone
did
else
not
is a
give
character.
shit. Bradley Walsh did not give a shit in Series 12. He was just playing himself.
I would
Yeah,
argue
yeah,
that he didn't give a shit for the
He
whole
didn't give a
time he
shit.
was there.
He was not giving a
Yeah.
shit.
was
Kablam,
No.
Kablam, that's where you got the signs of, okay, it's not playing the character, but in every other episode, okay, he was actually playing Graham. But in Series 12,
He was good
just
in
Kablam.
Rosa. I thought he was very powerful in that moment.
No.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is,
Absolutely.
Series 11, he was really good.
Yeah.
Like, it
Oh,
takes
yeah,
you away.
series-
I think it was his best performance. So,
Fair enough. Yeah.
Mhm.
But no, just to finish off my thoughts and then let somebody else talk, I give Resolution a 9 out of 10.
I would agree.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd say it's about an 8 or a 9. Yeah.
Yeah, 9. 9.
I also give it an 8. I thoroughly enjoy all the Dalek stuff. I think it's really well written. The scene where we get the top-down view of the Dalek just destroying the army back and forth is really cool.
A Dalek killing people is so missed.
Honestly, it is. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. I don't like the bit with the like throwaway character who just happens to be a gay character.
oh,
Again,
that was
just
a
personally-
terrible
That
movie.
just personally pisses me off because it's
Yeah.
very much bury your gays. It's like, oh, I have a boyfriend. Oh, I'm dead now. Like, oh, fuck off. But can I just say Charlotte Ritchie is great in this episode.
Yes.
Yes, like I love her in Ghosts, so it was really cool to see her in this, and she's really good in this episode. I think she's one of the highlights. I think her acting when the Dalek's possessing her, I think is
A lot
really
of
great.
heavy lifting. Yeah, I agree.
Like she's really, really good in this episode, and yeah, just the way the Dalek's doing is really good. I don't like the microwave thing; it does kind of annoy me, but that's just it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. But I can look past it because I enjoy a lot of what the rest of the episode was trying to do. So yeah, I give it an 8. It's my middle of the Dalek trilogy. It's not my favorite. I feel like my favorite is going to be the one that everyone else hates, but we'll see.
Oh no!
Big
You
up
haven't
Revolution.
heard me yet.
Big up Revolution. Hell yeah.
No, my favorite is going to be the one that everybody hates. I can tell you that now.
We shall get that to you soon. But yeah, I think I get the point of what Will said about like Ryan like dying. That would have sort of been like a sort of nice symmetry to his introduction. Like he saves his dad like after losing his like gran and stuff like that. But I think it sows a seed for a line of dialogue that comes up in Revolution where he talks about like his friends, like he's getting better relationship with his dad and stuff like, so that's why he wants to leave. So that kind of like sows a little seed of a reason to be a character. But I think it does some new stuff with the Daleks. It's really enjoyable, and after Ransk Kalos, like this is the finale to Series 11. Like this rounds it off. Like,
Anything was going to be better, let's be honest, but the fact that it was the Daleks and they came back with a bang and did something different with them that hadn't been done throughout the entirety of the show was great. It was a nice earthbound story. I thought it was just
I
a
like
nice
the joke
twist.
about Brexit being the reason that there's no unit.
Yeah.
It's probably the most effective use of unit in the Chibnall era. No, I just really enjoy it. But shout out to, like, we haven't talked about him yet. Like Sega Nakanola's like music is fantastic in this era.
In this era.
Yes.
Now, I've given
No.
Sega
In
Nakanula
Resolution,
exactly the level
yeah.
of props he needs, which is nothing whatsoever.
No, not like peak. He's not peak Murray Gold, but like in terms of something new. Like Me and My Mates is such a good song, and the way it's redone in like Spyfall, I think is nice.
I think nothing he did other than the theme tune was remotely memorable. I'm sorry.
Oh, see, I have 2 big shout-outs for him, but we'll get... I can mention one now. I love 13's theme, but it took for her regeneration to make me realise that I loved it.
Yeah.
Because I never really
Says a lot.
paid much attention to it before. I didn't really pay much attention to it until she regenerated with it, and then I was like, oh, this is actually really, really gorgeous, and that's what made me really like her theme. But
It's because
I
it's a
don't know, sorry.
variation. It's because
sorry,
it's singing.
there's 3 that I really like. There's her theme, and then there's 2 that we're going to get to later in the recording.
Okay, and that is our Series 11 unquote. So what was
Breakdown.
your average score, Mike, for all your episodes in the series in whole?
Sorry. You caught me eating. I
Oh,
worked it
dear.
out I worked it out mathematically that the average score for the season was 6 out of 10. So 6 out of 10 for Series 11, which was kind of nicer than I thought it would be because I didn't really like it.
That seems
My
like a
top,
fair average, yeah.
my top 3 episodes were Demons of the Punjab, The Witchfinders, and Resolution. And the worst episode is obviously the Battle of Rancid, Acid, Ravioli, Cheese.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, so, should we just do like a top 3 of the series? So, Will, you can give some thoughts on 11 because you've missed a bit.
Have me last. I'm just doing
sure?
my average. Yeah.
All right, go on then. Andy, you next.
So my average score, I did it as a percentage. So the average score for the series is 51%, which is, I know it's still half, but
Above average.
compared to every single other series of Doctor Who, it's bad. But top 3 episodes: Kablam, Resolution, Rosa, I put as my best 3. Although honestly, Witchfinders and Woman Who Fell to Earth could easily have possibly replaced Rosa.
Yeah.
So yeah. Worst episode, absolutely Battle of Ranskor out of Kolos. Fucking just hate it, burn it. It's terrible. Yeah.
So, same as Andy, my top 3 were Resolution, Kablam, and the names, they're all coming in my mind. I can't think of the names. Rosa, obviously Rosa Parks, number 3. But if I was to extend to top 5, it'd be Arachnids in the UK. And no, I mean, I'm not laughing. That's an honest opinion. I enjoyed that episode. I'm on my own, but sod it. And in number 5, controversy would be Battle of Ravioli F. Kolos. I think it's a really good episode. Underrated. No, that's easily second worst episode. Sanundra Conundrum. Fuck that episode. Brett Goldstein, you deserve justice. Roy Kent was not born before when that episode aired. Fuck Sanundra Conundrum and everything it fucking did, and that dialogue. Burn it to the ground. Hate it. Hate it.
Oh,
Hate it.
oh.
I'm aware that Will likes Saranga Conundrum.
I recently rewatched it. On rewatch, I thought it got so much.
I enjoyed it a lot more second time round, but
Will, what would you give it out of 10 out of
I
curiosity?
think it's garbage.
When I rewatched it, I gave it I'd round up to a 6.
I give it a 6. There you go.
Yes.
So I would say my top 3 for the series were Demons of the Punjab, Resolution, and Witchfinders, with Rosa like 4th. But
hang on, that's the exact same 3 as me, George.
It's Alan Cumming. It's all about the cum. I would.
God, Jesus Christ.
My least favourite is Ransgrav Kolos / I really didn't like Arachnids, but that's by the by. Saranga, I was probably like very middle-ish, like maybe just below of this run of 11, but it's better than I thought. Like rewatching Series 11 this last week, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, and made me look on some more issues that the following series had to maybe hold it up a bit higher. But we'll get to that. Yeah. Will, your go.
Okay, so do you want my top 3? Yeah.
You go for top 3 and an average or whatever.
Okay, so in no particular order, it would be The Woman Who Fell to Earth. I thought that was a really solid opener. I think it holds its own compared to Deep Breath, The Lamb Farah, and Rose. And of course, the Christmas Invasion, if you want to count that. Also, Rosa. And third, I know Andy loves it, Kablam. That just sneaks into my top 3 as well. And my least favorite would probably be It Takes You Away, which I absolutely hate and shouldn't have been aired. Because honestly, I have a lot of respect for the people who work in TV. Of course, I want to work in TV. But the set design was literally straight out of CBBC. I hate how that episode was, and it was a little bit ableist as well, but that's a kind of worms I don't want to get into. It pissed me off, that episode. I think it was horrendously written, and I hate it. And the Battle of Ranskor of Kolos is boring, which is a cardinal sin of television, but It Takes You Away is just egregious, and if you guys said you like it, then fair enough, but I despise it.
I give it a 5.
I'm the closest to you. I gave it a 4. So
fair enough. It's not good. It's not good. And my average for the whole series is Unsurprisingly, I did like some episodes like Rosa. I gave like a 9 out of 10, but my average is 4.3 out of 10, unfortunately.
Ooh, scathing reviews from Will.
Mixed bag between us for 11. Will Series 12 be better?